Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. Why am I pausing like Donald Trump when I'm talking? My name is Colin. You know how he pauses like almost too long sometimes? Like he's really thinking about what he's going to say. I didn't mean to do that. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my brother, Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, how are you today, my friend?
Yo, I was just telling you guys, Kiki's on the floor behind me somewhere, but she's managing to stay off camera. I don't know where.
Kiki is Dagan's
our little 5-year-old Havanese. She's not that little. She's actually pretty big. She's like 21 pounds.
I was going to make a more sexual joke because you weren't clear about who you were talking about. You're like, Kiki's on the floor over here.
Kiki's
and
mistress.
his cam girl or whatever. I don't know.
But just so you guys know, there might be a kind of a shifting. The cleaning people are here. Of course, they're always here for Constellation. They're becoming part of the show pretty much.
Those Polacks?
They're not Polish. It's like the 5th time you've said that.
You want to know why I keep saying that? It's because Dad had these like random, I don't know if you remember this, like random old Polish couple that would like clean his house.
I have a Polish couple too. They were
okay, so that's like a thing. Yeah.
They insisted on cash.
Not Polish. Can you say Polak? Is that bad?
You can't say that. You can't say that.
I thought that was like, I mean, I've never used it, but I thought that was the official like name.
I think it's like calling a German a kraut.
You know, I've only ever heard
it's like probably
a
little offensive, but you get it.
Is Polak racist?
Yeah, look that up. Is Polak racist?
It has like that double meaning.
The FBI agent that spies on this show is like.
Turns out Wikipedia says it's derogatory. So.
Okay, all right, we have to go with that then.
It's because the only time I hear it is when like my grandma would say it in like a very angry tone, so it didn't sound good.
Well, it was like, didn't you come out with the word, the use of the word midget? Wasn't that you? Which I think is considered like, I don't know why. Like, I don't know why is that a derogatory term? I guess it's up to them to tell us because I think it comes from like the vaudeville, like circus kind of.
Yeah. The parlance of.
I can't keep up with all this nomenclature.
That's a lot. It's a lot. So my daughter may be on a camera because I might have to do a Kiki handoff. If she starts barking, she can't stay in here. So if I get up with the headphones off and everything, and we do the little transfer,
Kiki off like a football, like really, like tuck it into your daughter's gut. Yeah,
I'll give her like a lateral pass. Just
read
like
option,
gentle pass, 15 feet. No big deal.
Micah Watson, good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the show. How are you, my darling?
I'm doing pretty well.
I'm in a weird mood today. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. I'm glad to hear
this is good. Yesterday, I go grocery shopping, and they had Reese's Puffs on sale. Buy one, get one free. And now that's a luxury I don't usually let myself have because they're not good for you. But when they're buy one, get one free, that's my excuse to buy it. So I'm very happy.
Twice as much.
When they're on sale. Yeah,
they're healthy. Yeah, buying twice as much is definitely better. Good.
Absolutely.
Good. I'm glad to see you. Welcome. How are you? How are you feeling otherwise? How is life? Talk to me about something random and tell me everything about it.
Well, I'm tired, I suppose. I had a weird dream last night that I was the only one who could stop a nuclear attack on the United States, right? And so I did that. And then I get to Uncle Mike's house and he's like, "You're late for the party." And it was this whole like thing that I was late. And it's like, I just stopped a nuclear attack and like, you're like mad at me because I was late to dinner.
It's like some sort of Spy Kids or something where you're like, your family, you got the family on the side. They don't know what you're doing. Interesting.
Yeah, no, it was unpleasant and I woke up very stressed out.
Interesting. Very interesting. We'll delve into that deeper later.
I like it. You wrote an 80s movie in your sleep.
I guess I did. Yeah. That's an idea.
Get that script going, man. I love it.
Ben Smith,
yes,
producer. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I had a bit of a stressful morning. Well, not really stressful. I just realized that apparently the water flow, like if a lot of water is being used anywhere, obviously that means less water elsewhere. But today, when I was trying to brush my teeth and take a shower and make coffee and everything else, the dishwasher and the washing machine were both going, and it was like a trickle, like not, just a little constant strain. It was like bloop, 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 coming out of the shower head, and it was really irritating. And I didn't realize that until we had both the washer and the dishwasher going at the same time.
Oh,
so I was I was in a mood this morning, but I'm all right now.
Good.
I'm all right now.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're doing better. And we have what's our water situation? It takes a long time to get hot.
It does, but then it stays hot for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then, everyone can use it at the same time if you just wait for it to get hot.
You got to wait. Okay. Do you have a new house, Kyle? Do you have that? I don't know what it's called, but that relatively new plumbing infrastructure. It's all rubber hose.
PEX.
Oh yeah, I have no idea. You damn well know I have no idea what's going on.
The thing that's nice, I thought you were going to ask about this, the instant water heaters, where like it doesn't heat the water until it's coming through, and then it's like it's quick. It takes a lot of it's costly on the electric, but it's worth it because you're not heating water all the time in order to stay warm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Like I don't really know what is even running on what for the most part because we have gas.
Okay.
We found out, by the way, we had like a little gas leak going on outside.
Oh, not good.
Yeah.
But they were like, they told us like there was just a dude from Columbia Gas at our house like fucking around, and you could actually hear him doing something. Like, and I was like, I just came outside. I was like, what is going on here? And he was like, oh, hello, sir. You have I can't remember the exact terminology, but it was like it's like a non-serious gas leak.
Yeah,
that was reported or whatever. I'm like, oh, that's good because I felt like our gas bill was a little high, but I don't know. So I'm gonna have to track that now. But I will say, since installing those solar panels, $0 electric bill, $0. Although we are not in air conditioning season.
Oh, right.
2-zone air conditioning is gonna be a nightmare, and the pool pump and the pool heater, where things are gonna get fucked up. But we're storing those credits.
It's gonna help.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see what that's all about. But the natural gas bill, hopefully that will come down because we no longer have a gas leak.
Yeah, they kept telling us that our usage was abnormal. We kept getting these letters in the mail saying that we were using more than other households, but we were like, how can that be? We're just two people. And I thought, well, maybe they just don't cook a lot. I cook every day. I don't know.
Billing into the atmosphere.
And they finally investigated, huh? Okay. That's good. I feel like, what is it in Philly? Philadelphia Gas Works, PGW. I feel like they would never investigate that. They would just let you pay the high bill and possibly let the neighborhood explode.
Dude, PG&E in California is like a notorious nightmare company. My friend, or my old editor-in-chief, and my old friend Hillary Goldstein, who is an old guy at IGN, and he's still in the industry, I think, somewhere, like working at a publisher or whatever. But his house literally exploded in that famous. I don't know if you know anything about it. Like there was a famous. You can look it up. I think it was in 2010 or 2011, something like that, in like south San Francisco, like somewhere in there was a random pipe explosion in a neighborhood, and it fucking destroyed a bunch of shit. And all of those people got a bunch of money. Obviously, people died, I think, but I think Hillary was one of those guys, so he was able to like get out of there. But there's like always something with that company. If you read about them, they're like I don't want to say they're sinister or evil. They're just incompetent, like wildly incompetent.
The real life Shinra.
And it's in the state where there's like earthquakes and droughts and electrical storms and huge blizzards and like all these things that just flex pipes, and it's funny. I don't know.
They're falling into the ocean, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, not quick enough.
That's terrible.
Dude, I lived there and I wanted to fall to the ocean. I was going to go right into the ocean. I was in San Francisco and LA. In Santa Monica, I would have been like, both apartments I lived in both cities had tsunami warning signs outside of them, like on the next block. So it's like, I'm going down, dude. This is all going to be fucked up.
Poor Callie.
But a little bit of a death wish, so you don't really know. It's like an alien invasion. It's like, at least I would know. That would be all. Dig, you and I were just talking about this the other day on text. I was like, are you keeping up with all this alien? Isn't it weird that everyone is just like, okay, yeah, now it's to the point where, as you said, Dagan, everyone's like, there's got to be some like now everyone's conspiracy is that it's not real and that the government is using it as like a distraction, which is so fucking hysterical. You know?
I think living on the coast like that near the possibility of a tsunami is like probably the best scenario, because it's unlikely it's going to happen. But if it does happen, you're so close that you'll be dead really quick because you can't get away. Yeah. Like if you're a little further inland, like there's the possibility in your head that you could outrun whatever natural disaster is coming. And like there's that anxiety. But if you're that close, you're like, you're not getting out. You're just going to die real quick, and then it's fine.
It'd be devoured by water instantly.
Right. Definitely. Like, well, in San Francisco, I lived at 25th in the Sunset, and the roads go inward away from the water. So outward, I think it ends in like the late 40s. So I was 25 San Francisco blocks, which are not New York blocks away. That's like probably 5 New York blocks away from the water. But I would always think like the water would probably get to where we were, and then I'd be like, fuck, I'm going to drown in like 10 foot. I'm going to be like one of the people that just drowns like last, you know? It's not going to be the dramatic. You know the famous shot in Deep Impact where they're standing on the beach, the dad and the daughter, and the huge 2-mile wave comes and encompasses them. It's not like that.
It's just like it like slowly creeps up until it traps you inside.
It's fucked.
Yeah.
All right, my friends, it's good to be with all of you. Thank you for being here, and thank you all out there for being with Constellation, our conversational podcast going up each and every week. It was designed to go up each or every other week, and then you liked it so much. You liked it too much, and I'm sad to say I'm canceling it now. It's over.
Son of a bitch.
All right, what order should we go in? Let me bring the email up. I just sent mine up late because I was thinking about. Well, I'll start. I don't think I've ever gone first, or maybe I've only gone first once. So I'm going to begin because I was trying to make everyone laugh before the show, saying I came in real hot with my topic, which is uncommon because I was really struggling between two of them, which was best season and best vegetable. And
kindergarten topics,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. I feel like I come in with some philosophical topics, some hotter topics. I like to keep it a little light too, especially knowing what we're going to be talking about later in the show. So I'm going to keep best vegetable for another day. And maybe we'll do that with like a Super Mario 2 style conversation.
Nice.
But best season, I got to know, we're in spring now, I think officially. I wonder what you guys think of the seasons, the 4 seasons. And first of all, I guess the 4 seasons are a natural occurrence that you would experience on any planet similar to ours, that behaved similarly to ours at a similar distance from a star. So it's actually something we just naturally observe about the way seasons move. It's pretty cool. It's like it's like 12 months don't naturally exist, but we've figured out a way to explain the way we experience time. And I look at seasons a similar way. So you would have similar things and similar experiences on other planets, which would be cool. Not all, of course, but I'm curious what you guys, what's the best season? What's your favorite? What's your least favorite season? I want you guys to go to the mat for your favorite season. And I guess I'll begin and say, I've always really been partial to winter. I love the winter. And I just feel like it speaks to everything that I like about it, reinforces, let's say, everything that I like to do in so many different ways, especially when I was a kid, because not only was it, here's a way to get out of school, here's an awesome reason to play outside, here's a reinforcing element to get you really cozy while you read a book or play a game, but it was also like, it's hockey season. It was like a really exciting thing. So fall, I'd get really I'd really anticipate it. My birthday in October but once you get into that December, that especially in New England, November, December, January, February, obviously I dig those months, but then I think about the late winter months when it starts to get a little grimy, a little dirty. I always talk about how when I worked at Northeastern on the grounds crew and the landscaping crew, I think I've explained before, you would go and you would punch in, and then the crew, like the full-time people would get there early in the morning, and then everyone would meet at 9:00 and have breakfast at like one of the random dining halls. And at that point you would get your assignments, and all the full-time people had all their different things. So the people that were part-time, even though I was there for a while and I became like the lead part-time person, I guess, you would still get all the bullshit. So I remember being told it's like February or March, the snow piles are starting to melt. Go pull the garbage out of the snow piles, go like sweep up the dirt because these things would be huge, and they would just and you all know actually because you've all lived in snowy places. I don't have to explain anything to you. And it just takes forever, and it just melts. And then at the end, in like April, you have this pile of like cigarette butts and garbage and
It's pretty
dirt.
gross.
So it's pretty gross, which is
How
why
dirty diapers get in there.
yeah, it's like it's crazy, man. Like because people think it's funny. Like I'm going to throw a beer bottle into the snow pile, and then it snows 3 more times. You know. And so I just always think about kind of so it's yin and yang winter. There's like a real, especially if you go up to Tahoe or you go into upstate New York or in Pennsylvania and all these different places, very pristine. Doesn't really get like that. But cities, that first snow is always really magical. I remember in Boston going to college there, it snowed fucking constantly, but the first huge snow would feel really interesting. Everything would be kind of dead and pristine, but then it would snow on top of the snow, and then people would throw dirt and salt on top of the snow, and then it would snow again, and then someone would throw a cigarette butt and a beer bottle, and then it would snow again. And so I don't know. I just wanted to throw all of that out there. But I love winter. I love what it represents, and I would give a shout out in a secondary way to fall. There's something. I guess I'm just a dark person, but I love this idea that, and again, it's programmed into the planet, into the way things are, and our relationship to the star, and all of that, and the way things evolve. But that things just know mostly they just let go and they die, or they just wither away, or they go into some sort of hibernation. Everything knows to do it. Everything prepares. The leaves start turning brown, and they're letting go of their leaves, and they're using all their energy to store. And the bears go into hibernation and stuff. So it's kind of cool. It's a signal fall that it's like this primal thing that it's starting to change. The seasons are changing. I usually feel like people say that specifically summer to fall. So yeah, I would give a secondary shout out to fall. But Dig, let me throw it over to you. What are you thinking about seasons? Best season? Kindergarten topic, like Ben said. Absolutely.
I love it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like conjuring the crafts in the hallway, right? Celebrating every season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about this a lot, man, because it's becoming, I don't even know why this is happening, but it's sort of just like a natural evolution. It's becoming more and more apparent that I'm not going to be in the Northeast anymore. Like my family is definitely going to move south or west. I'll be in California just in time for it to break off into the ocean.
You'll be in California after I lived there for 13 years. That's great. Good for you.
The timing is really, really strange, but I never thought I would leave the Northeast. Like I spent the better part of my life thinking I would always be here because I love it here, right? Born and raised, just very comfortable, very homey for me and comforting, But yeah, more and more, it's becoming more and more apparent that we're definitely going to be probably south and probably in Georgia. So I'm going to miss Georgia. We're going to be Georgia peaches. I'm going to miss the seasons, man. I'm going to miss it because I really do like the variety. I mean, we're all from the Northeast here, right? So, that's one benefit of being from where we grew up and spent a lot of our time is that we had the best of everything. And I think as a result of that, I love all the seasons. Like they all have their perks for me. They all have their benefits. They all have their charms, right? There's every season I really like, and I like the contrast. Like I like having them all because I think it makes you appreciate all of them because, there's always something to look forward to. And there's always something to come out of that you're tired of. Every 3 months, it's like, all right, I'm tired of winter, looking forward to the spring, tired of fall, looking forward to some snow, whatever it is, right? But for me, it's always been, I think in my heart of hearts, I think it's always been autumn and spring. Those are the two most aesthetic seasons. And they're the two most mild temperature wise, right? Like the older I get, the more grouchy I get about intense cold and intense heat. I find myself complaining like, oh, it's 95 degrees. This is too much. It's 15 degrees. This is too much. The winter, I get a little less grumpy about, which makes me worried because the intense heat, I don't do that well with. And where I'm going to probably be is a lot hotter.
Oh my God.
I mean, I've
dude.
spent a lot of time down south in Atlanta specifically, and it's hot down there. And
It's
I gotta
horrific.
start wrapping my
It's
head
horrific
around it.
It's horrific down there. Horrific.
It could be really tough.
Especially
I mean,
if you're in
no
like Savannah
different.
or something. Oh my God.
Savannah's maybe the hottest. Savannah in July is maybe the hottest I've ever been, and I've been to Orlando a lot.
Because it's a muggy heat.
It's tough. It's a beautiful city. I love it there, but yeah, but that's I gotta kind of readjust my thinking on seasons, and also I know like gradually there's been sort of a migration of. Like when I was growing up in the 70s, I'm not really sure like anything south of the Carolinas really had seasons. Like it was just always warm. Now it seems like there'll be a bit of snow in northern Florida and, you know, the leaves are changing in Georgia. I think, I don't know if it's global warming. I don't know what it is, but just the natural cyclical nature of weather, you know. And I'm also going to miss Kyle. You definitely conjured visions. This is one thing about being from the Northeast that's so funny, especially growing up. It seems to snow less and less now as time goes on. But like growing up, do you remember those mounds of snow in like a strip mall parking lot that would be there until June?
Yeah. Those are the ones I'm describing. And some asshole had to clean them up, and that was me.
I mean, that was really like part of growing up was like, it's hot. It's already been really warm for 2 months, and there's still some snow in like the TCBY parking lot.
Don't you remember that I was telling, or you probably don't know why you would remember this, but I described that I had a corner of my yard where I was putting all of the snow from the driveway and the sidewalk, and I was just trying to pile it as high as possible. It was like ridiculous. It was obvious that I was doing this on purpose. To like all of the neighbors, and I wanted to just see it. And it did last forever. It lasted like well beyond snow season.
I gotta like, I feel like I'm gonna need some sort of remote home base in the Northeast because I do think I'll miss it. I do think I'll miss the way things look, the way a season feels. You know, like you were saying, Kyle. Like spring is not just the flowers blossoming and the grass turning green and it's getting a little warmer outside. We're over winter, but it's like baseball, right? It's like the crack of the bat. It's like baseball on television. It's
that was a bad. That sounded like a punch.
Crack. You tried. You tried. You know, it's the foods. It's summer barbecuing and the evolution. And again, it's like we get a little taste of everything over the course of a 12-month period. That's pretty special. Not everybody has that, you know, and then growing up near the ocean. So you get the benefits of that, going to the beach and all of that. So, yeah, but for me, I think really it all comes down to autumn and spring. I'm not sure which one I would pick because they're both, there's a nostalgia really tied to both of those seasons for me too. You know, being a kid, school, you know, I guess a lot of it has to do with school, right? School coming back in session in the autumn and then school winding down in the spring, getting excited for the summer.
Spring is very nostalgic, I think.
Vibes. Every season has a vibe, but those two, autumn and spring, I got to give the vibes to those two.
Definitely. You know, I love that you brought up spring just in that I still have these like nascent early memories of just our yard on Long Island and how things came up and the different flowers and watching them come up and being excited about that and really interested and engaged in all of that around the yard as those years passed. And yeah, it's like, it is a very nostalgic, earthly season of renewal. And like everyone's just kind of, there's something in the air in the spring, which is interesting, like undeniable about that. No doubt. Yeah, and that is special because in living in San Francisco, especially for 10 years, LA doesn't have seasons either really, but it's just hot as fuck down there. But in San Francisco, there are no seasons really either. There's a hot season, like an Indian summer style thing going on. And then there's a rainy season that sometimes doesn't happen at all. And then sometimes happens pretty badly. And that, I would say can begin maybe in November, December and go January, February. But generally it's the same temperature, a similar temperature and the same feel, foggy, cloudy. But sometimes when it's sunny out, it's 60 degrees. It's a really awesome place. And I thought I would miss the seasons more than I did, but that level of consistency where you just knew what you were getting, like you didn't even have to look at the weather. And it was especially being perfect. I think it's perfect sweatshirt weather, 60s, that's the best part of San Francisco. And that's a very unique microclimate only in the city. It's not, and like in some surrounding, you know, where the redwoods are and a Marin and all that. But once you get out to wine country or down into Silicon Valley, that's done. And it gets back to being California hot. And so it's just being on the peninsula and just a unique kind of climatology or whatever, the climate there. So a shout out to that. So I liked having it both ways, but being back in Virginia, I like it. And Dave, you got to come on down here to Virginia. You're going to go down there to Georgia.
Isn't it funny though? I feel like Virginia was growing up. Like I always thought Virginia was like, oh, that's Southern and everything that comes along with it. The heat, right? Not only the geography and the people and the accents and all that kind of thing, and the culture, but the heat, right? I feel like Virginia is like maybe 5 degrees warmer than Philly at any given point now. Like there's definitely been a shift, unless I'm completely ignorant and it's just always been that way. But I think there's really been like there's a lot less difference now between the northern part of the South and the Northeast, you know?
Yeah. We got a saying about Georgia. All right. Ben, let's hear from you.
I live in Western Pennsylvania, as you guys know, but maybe not everybody knows. But I don't feel... So I worked at a college for a few years, and they would always give us like lines when we'd be talking, because I started out there as a recruiter for admissions for students, and they'd give us a line that was like, when people would ask about the weather, it's like, well, we experience all 4 seasons here. And I was like, as I did with many other things they told me to say, I was like, I'm not saying that, because it's not true. Like we experience all 4 seasons, but like spring and fall are like 7 days apiece. Like we go straight from stupid cold to gross hot, and it never gets like insufferably hot, but it's just a miserable hot because there's no nuance to it. It's either hot or cold, it seems like. And I mean, here sometimes it'll snow in May and significantly, and sometimes it's 75 in February. Like my birthday's at the beginning of February. I've had birthdays where like there was a blizzard, and like when I was a kid and none of my friends could hang out with me. And I've also had times where I remember like running around the park in shorts. So it's just, there's no, I don't know. But I would have to say, ideally, if there were actual real seasons, probably spring and fall. I had a saying too that I don't complain in summer about being hot, because I want to complain twice as much in the winter about being cold. So that's my goal, is to never complain about being hot, so that I can complain twice as much about being cold. Because I don't, and it's like a lot of people are like,
I hear that.
Big guys are like, oh yeah, I love the winter because I'm always hot, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be cold. Are you kidding me? I don't know. And people are like, you can put more clothes on, but you can't take as many clothes off. And I was like, I'll do whatever I want. I don't want to be cold. So I don't know. I think ideally it would have to be, spring or fall, just purely from weather. But as far as like stuff you do, I think winter, because I love, just kind of, other than the fact that like snow derails these plans sometimes, but like I love just like cozying up at home. I also love skiing, and all the stuff that comes along with winter, I'm a big fan of, but I don't like the weather. So I guess that's like I talked about in the last Constellation. I have no idea why I live here, because there's nothing actually I'm not required to live here for anything, and I hate the majority of the year because it's cold. So
where do you want to be? Where do you want to go?
I like Los Angeles weather, but I don't want to live in Los Angeles, because I feel like it's
like
more
Orange County or something.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Inland Empire,
but that's still got to be way more expensive than where I'm living now.
Oh,
for
definitely.
No reason.
Oh,
yeah, it certainly is. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but if you wanted that LA vibe without the the LA,
right. LA.
I would go to Orange County personally, or
but
even
Kyle,
San Diego.
Is the LA migration affecting home prices and real estate prices in general? I would think people leaving would affect that for people wanting to come in a positive way.
What I would understand, as I understand it, is that housing prices have not really gone up.
Okay.
But as they often do, they kind of plateau.
Okay.
And there's never like a new normal develops.
They stabilize.
Because just knowing different LA neighborhoods and where people have lived, and knowing people that have lived in beautiful houses, like Dave Rubin's old house in LA, or both of them. I mean, like ridiculous houses. and those are never going to be cheap. But I said it on probably an old knockback when I was talking to someone when I was like kind of just looking and being like, should I buy something here in LA or like Santa Monica? Maybe go. I don't know. I like San Diego. San Diego's really fucking expensive too, so it's prohibitive. Our mutual friend Pat Contry lives there. I went to his house once down there, and he told me actually what he paid, and I was like, man, that's awesome, good for you, but it's like, holy mother of God. Yeah, but it's worth. San Diego's a total lifestyle. You want to talk about a vibe? I mean, San Diego's awesome, but yeah, it's pretty expensive. And anyway, I was told back then that it's like you're not going to get anything for less than $1 million, like, and it's going to be bad. In Santa Monica, for instance.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like if you want something nice, it's going to be millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of crystallized in my mind. I'm not staying here. Mm-hmm. California does have one huge advantage, which is really low property tax. But everything else is really bad. Income tax, Santa Monica has the worst sales tax in the entire country at almost 10%.
Wow. Holy cow.
So it's no reason to stay there. So there is an out-migration, substantial out-migration, which, if I might say, is what I think is why can't Gavin Newsom, if he ever gets involved, like he's kind of getting more and more involved. I think it's a huge Achilles heel. It's like, dude, your state, people are leaving your state. People don't want to hang out in that hood anymore. But if you want to go to California, there are cool parts. I have people that live out in East LA. My friend Lacey Green, who, Chris Reagan's ex girlfriend, that is also just a personal friend of both of ours. She lives out there, and there's beautiful spots, like very suburban, Wonder Years type spots, and definitely cool spots like that. But it's going to be expensive.
Yeah, I don't actually want to move there, but I was just thinking about one time I went to a conference just barely south of LA, probably a decade ago now. And when I left here, it was like, 4 degrees, snow, sleet, whatever. And we got there and everybody was like freaking out because there was this big winter storm coming in. You're like, oh, okay, well, big winter storm. That's unusual for California, for Los Angeles area. And then like it just barely started misting a little while later, and everybody was like running around like,
oh, dude, the rain fucks LA up, dude.
And I was like, what happened to the winter storm? And they were like, this is it. And like people were like running around like old ladies with bags over their head and stuff. And I'm like walking around in a t-shirt and shorts.
Fascinated.
And like,
it is very notable when it rains in LA. You notice it because it's very unusual.
Unrelated to weather, but I also noticed a cultural difference when I was there. And this was more than 10 years ago. This was during the period of time when Britney Spears like went crazy and shaved her head and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was like on the 5 o'clock news. Like that was the news. It wasn't anything about like world politics or like this old lady got shot in her backyard or something like that. It was like Britney Spears shaved her head and here's the celebrity gossip. And I'm like, wait, this is NBC I'm watching right now. This isn't some, E! Entertainment or something like that. So, yeah. But I don't want to move to California, but that's the kind of weather where like it's always at least kind of nice.
What about Arizona?
Yeah, my wife likes Arizona a lot, or likes the concept of Arizona. I like the fact there's no humidity, but
dry heat, right?
Yeah. I've been to Arizona a couple times for different things, and I don't know. Again, like my family is here, so not that I need to be near my family, but I feel like because I don't need to stay here, I also don't need to move. So I kind of feel like it'd just be like, all right, mom and dad, here's a little slap in the face for you. I'm leaving just because I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
So
that makes it tough.
That's nice. Yeah, you got to take that into account, no doubt.
It's a wrench.
Yeah.
Micah, we haven't heard from you in a good long while. So talk to me at great length if you'd like, and in great detail, everything you know about seasons.
Well, I'm going to start out. I love winter. Winter is my favorite season. And it is because of all the activities. Like when I was a kid, it was going ice fishing with my dad, which is a really unique experience. I didn't realize until I was older that it's not something most people get to do, when they're kids or anything. And I mean, he still goes like every weekend when it's winter. He just went last weekend, probably last time of the season. But it's things like that always made winter my favorite. And, it's the hot cocoa. It's dad making soup every weekend. It's cozy and nice. In my childhood home, we had those like metal radiators, for heat. And my mom would put like a pan of water on top of it to be like a little like humidifier. I remember like putting our mittens on top of it when we came in from the snow. It's just things like that. Winter is the most nostalgic season for me. And I also just love the cold. I like being cold. I hate being hot. I hate overheating. I'd always rather be like bundled up with like blankets and sweatshirts than,
Same.
wearing like shorts and stuff in summer is the worst. It's the worst. But like worse than summer is spring. I hate spring because allergies are really bad.
Oh, allergies. Yeah. That's the one thing.
I'm suffering. Like my allergies get to a point where like I start to get an earache. I like my hearing starts to get worse. It's like spring is not good.
Yeah, why is it like it's the happening or something for some people,
Yeah, when you're like something that's in the air, it's like it's the fucking pollen. That's what's in the air. It's killing me.
Does it get better in the summer for you, Micah?
It gets a little bit better. Specifically here in Virginia, the beginning of spring and the beginning of fall are really bad for me. Summer and, winter obviously are better, but I'm also allergic to our dogs. So it's partially my fault because I own things that I'm allergic to. But yeah, spring for me is the worst. I don't like summer very much either. And fall would be second place because fall, when you're talking about fall in New England, it's beautiful. And you have all the activities that we don't have here.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the pumpkin patch, you go apple picking, like all those things are just like, this is what fall is. And you have hot apple cider. I love it.
What's with the really tradition nostalgic. In New England of inviting people and being like, you come and do the work.
Yeah.
And making it into an event.
It's so much fun. And I miss it because when I moved here, I didn't really know what to expect. We'd come to Virginia on like family vacations when I was a kid, but not for more than a week. And it was always in summer. And so I found out like, oh, people go apple picking in fall. Where is it? And it's like an hour and a half away. I'm like, I'm not driving an hour and a half to pick my own apples. Like it was fun back home because there were 100 orchards to choose from and they were all a 10-minute drive. But it is, you're doing your own work and it costs more money than buying apples at the store, but it's fun. It's fun to do manual labor and to go pick your own pumpkin and it's really expensive and there's a corn maze. Like all these things, they're fun. And I miss that for sure. Like I like it here, but I miss the North so much. And it was like 2 weeks ago, my parents got 2 feet of snow and it was like 65 degrees here. And I was a little bit jealous.
Wow.
Part of me was part of me says, well, I'm glad I don't have to drive in it. But at the same time, it's like we didn't get any snow this year. I think we got like a half inch of snow and I missed it when it happened. I woke up and it was mostly melted and that was it.
Yep.
So for here in Virginia, winter is still my favorite because it's just the most mild of the seasons. My allergies aren't bothering me. And of course, there's Christmas. I mean, I love Christmas. It's my favorite day of the whole year. And that's in winter. So you have to like that. But I despise summer here. It's so much worse than up in Massachusetts. The humidity just kills me.
Massachusetts.
I like when people say they want, like, they're like, oh, I hate snow, but I want snow on Christmas. And I'm like, but what? Why? Who cares? It's Christmas either way.
You know what's the worst is rain on Christmas is the worst.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah. Agreed. That's terrible. What's one thing about the snow that it makes me grumpy that, the driveway and just the work around being an adult and having to deal with snow. But I love driving in the snow and I always have. Oh, I'll take it all day. I love it. Put me up in the Pocono. I'll go up to the Pocono just so I could drive around up there. I'm a maniac in the snow. I absolutely love it. I don't know what it is about me driving in the snow. And I've had some horrifying things with spinning on the highway and stuff like that. There's something, it's almost like feeling insulated. It's a weird thing, like almost like taking a New York City cab ride. Like you just feel protected from the outside world. Like I think that's a Seinfeld routine, right? Feel the same way driving in the snow because generally I'm a very defensive driver and I'm very worried about the caliber of the drivers that I'm around. Mm-hmm. In the snow, I just kind of throw caution to the wind. I'm like, let's go. I feel like I'm a rally driver or something, but it hasn't changed. Like as I get older, I'm just like, yeah, let's do this. Let's drive too fast and a foot of snow and see what happens.
Gnarly.
No,
gnarly out
never.
there.
I've also never had a car that was very good in snow.
That's what you gotta
I drive a
get.
Honda Fit, so like it's so lightweight that
That's
it's
not even
really
a car
not
that's good at all.
no, it's a great little car.
I'm sure it's a good car. I've always hated the way they look.
Oh, although
I like you, Micah. I just think your car's kind of ugly.
He just thinks you drive a fucking clown car. That's all. But he likes you. He thinks you're fine.
Yeah, you're fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? It's the same type of car that a recently famous assailant drove. So you know what? That makes it a little bit cool, doesn't it?
You're right.
I do like the fact that your car is I won't say unique, obviously, but a unique color.
It is a unique color.
Yeah, you can pick it
yellow.
out. Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to tell everybody that you drove a yellow Honda Fit, but you go for it, I guess, if you want.
Oh no, I mean that's well known. I've tweeted about it.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's like a metallic yellowy green-ish lime. Lyman? I don't know. I'm making things.
Let's not think about too deeply about the color.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was fun. Yeah, I just a little round robin about that. I just wanted to kind of get everyone feel for everyone's situation, because wouldn't it be interesting if we, World War III seems inevitable and we'll see what happens. But let's say we have to go into these Fallout-like vaults and we just lose all concept of the seasons. Or what was that show on Netflix that got canceled, but it was awesome? It was called Ascension or something like that, about the generation ship. And they would go into parts of the ship that would replicate the different seasons or whatever. I think living in a very, what would you say, even like a pneumatic existence would be pretty disturbing. I think, like, not having any concept, in other words, of what it was, even if you're not outside in it. Like, I think just being around that is very human, like, and existing through the seasons and the way they uplift you or bring you down, are nostalgic in all sorts of different ways. Again, I think the spring just is very nostalgic about my early years. I have a lot of later year nostalgia for the summer and the other seasons as well. But yeah, I just wanted to hear from you guys. So thank you for taking my topic on board. Now let's get fucking crazy. Let's see here. Let me look at the list. Dag, let's go over to you.
All right, my friends. Let's bring it down a notch. I was really going to bring it down with today's topic, but I chose a different one. We're going to talk about fears, my friends. Fears. I want to know what your guys' fears are. I've also been thinking about, because, I mean, for me and my neuroses, like, it would honestly be more efficient to talk about the short list of things I'm not afraid of. Pretty much just afraid of everything. And then I realized, like, I kind of feel I've always been kind of ashamed of that. But then I realized, like, a lot of that, at least the way I fancy it, this makes me feel better, so let me go with it, is that I think it's my creativity and just having a creative mind and just conjuring all kinds of things to be afraid of. And, in those scenarios that I'm daydreaming about all day, a lot of those are just horrific. And I think I've always been like that as a kid. But so in part of this, we can have a little catharsis, because I do want to get, as you guys talk about your own fears and all that kind of stuff, which I'm super interested in, maybe we could talk about how can we overcome fears, and also where do they come from? Like, what's the origin? And that plays into the one I want to talk about, because although I have a laundry list, bullet point, scroll, of fears, the one that I feel like I'm never going to be able to dodge, and also that I did not grow up with this kind of came on at some point in my adult years. I would say probably in my 20s at some point. And that's claustrophobia. Like, my claustrophobia is so deep and only seems to get worse that I really don't think there's any kind of therapy, any kind of trance you could put me in, where you could just kind of talk me out of it. I really think I'm stuck with this, and that's just a fear of enclosed spaces. And, one thing that made me realize I had this fear was having, worked in New York for most of my career and needing to be in elevators. And I would be, I would have to go in an elevator. Like, there was no way I would have to go up to the office, and I would have to come home, not to mention go to lunch and come back in between, but always being terrified where I couldn't even mask it. Like, I really couldn't even hide it. Like, complete strangers, the really mean-spirited ones, would call me out on it. Like they could just see my expression. They could see that I was uncomfortable. They could see that I was kind of like internally freaking out, but trying to hold it together type of thing. And again, like I remember being a kid and creating really comfy, cozy spaces for myself. Like it was kind of the opposite. Like I loved to like squeeze myself into like these pillow forts and stuff like that. But now it gets so bad that I don't even like sitting in my car if it's turned off and I can't access my windows. Like in order to like park in my car, like for instance, waiting for my daughter at dance class, like I'll have to roll down my window and turn the car off, because even being in the car starts to get me a little hot and bothered, in a bad way though, in a terrible way. So, and the elevator thing, it's bad. It's really bad. And it's to the point where I don't even know, like it's definitely something, it could be crippling, right? Like we went to IKEA a couple of weeks ago, and the entire day I spent really kind of like going over in my head, like, is there a way to leave without going in the elevator? Like I was like really kind of freaking out, like there's no staircases. And the whole day I was dwelling on that. Like, am I going to have to go in the elevator at IKEA? So fears, my friend. So, and again, just, it's kind of shitty having a fear. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like you could do the dangling stopwatch in front of me, hypnotize me. I'm not sure there's any breaking me of the fear of, being in an enclosed space. I don't even know. Like that's the whole thing about fears too. Like if you really think about it, and maybe it's different for you guys, but it kind of defies reason, right? It kind of defies logic. It's like, why, where did this come from? And why am I so terrified? Like Helene's like, when you get in an elevator, what do you think is going to happen? You know what I mean? Like, and it's playing out my scenario. Like I'm going to be trapped in there indefinitely. Yeah. And she's like, but that doesn't make any sense. Why would you be trapped in an elevator for days or weeks? And again, it just like defies explanation. And the one story I heard about, there was like, I wish I knew more details because it's kind of eroded in my memory now, but there was supposedly one sort of renowned New York City newspaper editor. I don't know exactly who it was, who was so claustrophobic. And of course, he was forced to go into the office wherever he worked at New York Times or whatever. He had to go in an elevator 40 stories or whatever every day. He wouldn't get in an elevator without a hatchet in his handbag. And I always like, yeah, I understand. Like, I totally understand that, dude. Before I kick it over, because I want to go to Micah on this one. Oh. My claustrophobia got so bad in my commute to New York, which kind of ended right before COVID. So it's been a few years, that I would get claustrophobic in the train, the New Jersey Transit train going from Jersey into New York. They're very old tunnels. It's kind of one tunnel in, one tunnel out. They're finally adding to this infrastructure, but it's been years since. So these tunnels are really old and they're just big enough for the train. And I know that. And it goes under the Hudson River to get into Manhattan. So, and you're kind of, even if the train's moving at a fair clip, you're going to be in that tunnel for the better part of 5 minutes. Right. And it terrified me. Like if this train breaks down in the tunnel, I'm going to freak out. Mm-hmm. And thank God, knock on wood, my train never broke down in the tunnel, but it happened weekly to somebody got broken down in the tunnel. But my claustrophobia got so bad that I would count the lights, and I knew there was like 60 something lights. So if the train did come to a crawl or would stop at a certain point, I would know how far into the tunnel I was. That's how bad my claustrophobia. So if we were on light 52 and the train stopped, I'd be like, okay, like relax. Like maybe even the head car is out of the tunnel. But if we were on like in the middle somewhere, I'd freak out, and it was kind of bad because it would only make my claustrophobia worse had something happened. Right. So that's how bad it got. And I always wondered, like I picked this thing up out of the blue. Am I going to be able to shake this thing? But I honestly don't think I could do it, And my second worst fear is the dark.
Mm.
Don't like the dark. I'm just way too imaginative for that. Like my wife loves to sleep pitch black room. I mean, as dark can be. Like you can't see your hand in front of your face. And
Amen. That's like, ideal.
How? See,
No.
I don't know how you would have the courage to do that. You know what I mean? And I'm not just talking about now, like playing Resident Evil 4 before bed or watching a horror movie, God forbid, before bed. Like just my imagination in general is just way too, the gears are always going a mile a minute. I just can't do it. I just have that childlike, again, like just an imagination that defies reason. And I know that, but I can't stop, my friend. So Micah, let me kick it over to you for fears. Do you have any big ones? Are you like me? Do you have a million? Do you think?
Yeah. No, there's many. I'm going to touch on, the heavy hitters here. Firstly, claustrophobia is one. I know exactly why I am this way, though. It's because when I was a kid, my dad used to put me under the futon and not let me come out. And so my claustrophobia is very specific.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not bothered.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
Well, so I'm not bothered by elevators because that's a normal space. But if you ever said, I need you to get that storage bin under the bed, I'm not doing it. Oh. My fear of claustrophobia is me getting trapped in a stepbrother. I need help. I'm stuck in the washing machine. It's one of those fears, right? Like I don't put me in that situation. So for me, it's very specific to sometimes Treble will drop a toy behind the couch and I'm like, I can reach it. And then I get this immediate panic. Like, what if your arm gets stuck? And it's a visceral fear of actually shaking of I can't reach to grab this toy type thing. So my type of claustrophobia is extremely specific of I'm worried I'm going to get stuck in this specific space, but I'm not bothered by elevators, let's say. Although I used to work at a department store that had an elevator that broke down a lot. So every time you got on it, you knew it was a possibility. And they would give customers gift certificates if they got stuck in the elevator for more than an hour. So you almost kind of hoped that maybe you'd get stuck in it because you might get a gift card. And where my dad works, he's gotten stuck in the elevator several times, but he has no fear at all. And for him, he's like, I just get to hang out and go on my phone and listen to the radio. So he's cool with it.
Yeah, he probably hopes it happens. I could totally relate to things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas who gives a shit?
Yeah, he's lucky that he doesn't have any fear of it because for him, it's just I got a half-hour break that I wasn't supposed to have. But my biggest fear is actually heights. And it's gotten worse and worse as I've gotten older. When I was a kid, I didn't like ladders. In my grandpa's, we call it the tin building. It looks like a red barn, but it's made of aluminum. So the tin building. And it had a second story that you accessed by a ladder. And my dad one day was like, oh, do you want to come up here with me and look for stuff? And I was like, okay. And it was the first time that it set in. I got halfway up the ladder and I couldn't move. And I was just I can't do it. And it was the first time I ever felt that feeling. I might have been 8 or 9. And that's when it started of me realizing I'm afraid of heights. And it's gotten worse over the years to the point that I don't do ladders at all. We're talking about putting shelves in our garage, and Colin saying high enough that you'd need a ladder to get it. And I'm just I'm saying it up front that I will never grab a box from up there just so we're on the same page. I can't do it. I can't even think about it. It's a paralyzing fear. And it's gotten to the point where escalators, as we've talked about, really bother me now. I'll use them because sometimes it's the only way to, get up to that higher level at the mall or whatever. But the whole time I'm on the escalator, I'm white knuckling the handrail. I can't move. People are walking past you I can't physically move. I just have to stand still until we're at the top of it. And even it's becoming a problem in video games as they're getting more realistic. In Ghost of Tsushima, there's those really high mountains that you climb, and there are parts where you can look over the edge. I dropped the controller because it startled me so much.
Oh, Call of the Mountain would freak you out, dude. The PSVR
could never.
Yeah.
Oh, I could never.
It actually made me buckle my knees a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. No, stuff like that I could never engage with because it's just that bad for me. Even something like Ghost of Tsushima, it just really made my like skin crawl. Like, I hate this feeling of being up this high. And I wasn't sure I'd even be able to do all those challenges of climbing all those high peaks because it was really bothersome. So heights is like my biggest fear. And that's why I'm afraid of flying. Like, whenever I mention to someone I'm anxious about flying, yeah, they're always like, oh, the plane won't crash. I'm like, that's not really what I'm scared of. It's the actual knowing that I'm that high up. Like, that's really what it is just knowing I'm that high in the air. I'm not really worried about the plane malfunctioning. I just hate knowing that we're so high up in the sky. So my fear of heights has gotten worse. And also the dark. That is another fear that I have never let go of. Like, when I was a kid, I had a night light until I was way too old for one.
Me too.
Like that, I did not outgrow the need for a night light. And eventually I was like, well, I get up to go to the bathroom at night. So I just want to have the light on already, you know? But as an adult, I still hate the dark. If you shut off a light, I'm going to bolt like upstairs as soon as possible to like get out of the dark living room, go upstairs to bed. Like, I hate the dark. That's my other... I never got over that. I don't know why.
What do you guys do? Because Colin likes it. Colin's like Helene. He likes it dark. You like it. You like to be able to see when you're sleeping too. Like, have a little light in the room still, or are you a darkness? Yeah. All right. So what do you guys? How do you guys compromise on that?
Well, typically, like, we have blackout shades. You know, I really defer to Colin because I want him to sleep well. So. Yeah. I put up with it that it's darker than I'd like, but Colin also often falls asleep with his book light on. So I do often have a night light simply because he has fallen asleep with the book light on, and I'm like, sweet. And now I go to sleep peacefully, and it's fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd have to defer to Helene too, but
there's something about that amber glow, that very soft amber glow that I find very appealing as I'm trying to doze off.
Yeah,
but our room isn't totally pitch because we have shades but not curtains, so light does get around them. You can see in the room as long as it's light out, which is unfortunate. I would want it to be way darker than it is, but I only had that situation in San Francisco. I did have my room like that where it's like you could just shut the blinds and it was literally pitch black. There was no light, which is, I don't know. I was definitely scared of that situation when I was a kid, but I think when I got older, I just realized it's all fun and games. Ben, where do you stand on this topic?
On specifically the dark part, or just in general?
No, on I'm sorry, on Dagan. You can talk about darkness if you like, but on Dagan.
I relate with all of the, like, you know, the typical fears that people have. I think, you know, I'm a little bit. Definitely not the dark thing. I don't care about the dark thing. And as far as sleeping, I can sleep in broad daylight or pitch black. It doesn't matter to me. But as far as like heights, I'm not really afraid of heights. But if I get too high up and realize it, I get a little shaky. And I'm not really like, you know, there's a lot of those things where it's like, I don't have it all the time. It's certainly not like a big fear for me. But there are times, claustrophobia. I don't love being in super constrained places if I think I can't get out. But if I know I can get out, I'm like, yeah, like I want to like bury into the couch and throw a heavy blanket on and, you know, whatever, just kind of like chill. But the thing that for me has always, I've never been able to escape it, is a fear specifically of my house burning down. And that's like one of the more, I don't know if it's irrational, but one of the more irrational fears, in that, like, I'm not afraid of, you know, spiders or snakes. I don't really love them either, but like I'm afraid of specifically my house burning down. And I used to think I was just afraid of like fires. I mean, I like explosives. I like fires. I'm a man like that. You're supposed to do that, right? I like to blow stuff up. But I used to think like, oh, I'm afraid of things catching on fire, of buildings being on fire. And then my building actually was on fire. And you know, it closed and everything.
Yeah.
And I realized like it happened at like 8 a.m. I was still asleep. My wife woke me up and let me know. And I was like, oh, well, that kind of sucks, but like I wasn't like afraid. But when I still think about my house, I don't know if it's my house or every house or whatever, it really, really bothers me. And I don't think it's that I'm like obsessed with my stuff and I need my stuff, you know, whatever. I'm not worried about like being able to get out. I know escape routes from, like, I've already like looked at all the rooms on the second floor of my house and figured out how I'd get out of them. I don't have like a detailed document on the door side, like planning it out or anything, but like,
right.
I think
a hotel, like one a hotel room.
Yeah. Yeah, like an escape route.
Yeah, you are
But
here.
like, for whatever reason, I've just always had that fear. Like, and I don't know if the fear caused the dream or the dream caused the fear. But when I was a kid, I used to have this recurring dream that there was a volcano under my house. And one time I had to go to my neighbor's house, and we were looking across the street at my house volcanoing, exploding, erupting.
There you go.
I'll find the word eventually. Volcanoing seems to, I like the substitute of the word. But yeah, I've just always had this fear. And of course, my wife is a good cook, but sometimes she likes to let the house fill with smoke. She doesn't like to. It just sometimes happens. And her mom, and it's not been her fault, but they've had 2 houses either catch fire or burn down in the past. And I'm like, of course,
shit.
I would marry this woman who has a family history. It's like marrying somebody in the mafia. You're going to probably get involved. Like, I have this fear, even more irrational fear now, that at some point my house is going to burn down. And again, I guess it's like with all fears, like there's some sense of irrationality to it. It doesn't really make sense. And like, as long as everybody's safe, you can replace everything, whatever. But yeah, I just have always been it bothers me. It really bugs me. And that's why, like, there'll be people I don't even know who's like, their house burned down and they lost everything. And I'm like, I feel a connection to you, even though that's not happened to me. Like, I'm then like I'm even more empathetic towards them than I think I would be if, like, something else catastrophic happened to their home. Like, their house could get washed away in a flood and I'd be like, oh yeah, it sucks. Yeah. But like, if their house burns down, I'm like, oh man, I really feel bad.
Yeah, I identify as a house burning victim.
Yeah.
Are you guys compulsive stove checkers? I know Colin is.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm not. I just happen to notice those types of things. I don't go and like check it. I don't have to go check it.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I can tell you if the stove's on from 2 rooms away for some reason. Like the old tube TVs, you could, like, I don't know about you, but like, I'd walk down out of my parents' house. I'd walk down off the 2nd floor and onto the 1st floor, and like be a couple rooms away from where the TV was, and I could tell if the TV was on because like the old tube TVs gave off that little pitch. For some reason, if a stove's on, unless it's like a convection top or something, I can tell you that the stove's on.
You're like some sort of bat.
That is interesting. That's like
I don't know why I can't harness that into anything positive.
That's your superpower. My superpowers are the worst.
Yeah.
Colin is the one who I think taught me that really compulsive thing that I was always so proud of him for, where he would take a picture of the stove settings.
Yep.
So if he ever second guessed it on a trip or just, I guess away at the supermarket, he could see, oh yeah, it's off. I took a picture of that.
It used to add a significant level of anxiety to my many travels when I was in journalism and media, because if whoever I was living with at the time wasn't going to be home when I was leaving. If I was, for instance, I was leaving, I didn't like to be the first person or the last person to leave for work, because I didn't want to be like the once I was out of the door, I'm like, I don't give a fuck what happens here. I'm not responsible for this place.
I just don't want the responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. So I hated the responsibility of, and I learned over time, especially in the smartphone era, I would think about, did I lock the back door? Is the stove off? This and that. And I would just literally snap pictures. And you know what? I never looked at them, because I just knowing they were there, I was like, yeah, that's obvious that like you have the extra level of evidence that you need. But yeah, that's a whole OCD thing. It's funny you bring that up, because I was thinking about those various things that I do, those weirdnesses, and I still have it to this day, but I usually just don't leave for very long. If I'm going to the store or going to a family event or I'm going to dinner, I don't really think about it. It's only when I'm gone for long periods of time, or or no one's going to be back for a while or something like that. But nothing ever came of it.
Every couple months, I will go through and delete pictures exactly like that out of my phone. I'm like, why do I have all these pictures of like, and it's not always like, the stove or something like that, but it's like, I took a picture of something to make sure it was the way I remembered it, but I'm never going to need to remember it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I have to. I do the same. I come up with these random pictures of things too, and I do crazy things with that sort of thing. I don't even have time to get into all of that right now. But I will say, but I will say that I wrote down 4 things that fears, like real fears in the spirit of what you're talking about. And so I think I came up with 4 of them. One is drowning. We were talking about tsunamis before. I don't even worry about that. I'm just talking about the general fear of drowning. That seems like a pretty horrible way to go. And I could never be an Iron Islander, right? In Game of Thrones, because they literally let you drown and then just see if you resuscitate or not, which I think is hysterical, right? Didn't they do that? Didn't they do that to the one that they like just let him drown and then they just drag him out and they just all stand around him?
It could never be a Greyjoy,
right? I could never be a Greyjoy or anything of this nature. And so I don't know. I've always thought about that. I love being in the ocean. I love being in the pool. I'm actually a really great swimmer. I think I'm very natural at it. It was something that was introduced into my life very early and very often. I don't know to what end or why, but it's just by the time, and this might sound, by the time I was like 5 or 6, I was a pretty proficient swimmer. Where I think it was more of like we should probably watch Colin, but I don't think anyone was really worried about at that point. And I can honestly say that I go deep into the ocean. I used to get in trouble in LA for going too far. The guy swam out once to come get me because he was like, "You're way too far out."
Wow.
And so I love like riding the waves and riding with them and trying to ride them in, not with a boogie board or anything, which is cool, but I love doing that sort of thing. And I've gotten fucked up by the undertow a few times, but I've never really been in any serious danger. If you get tumbled by the undertow when you're in waist high water or even head high water, you're not going to drown. But what I'm talking about is being on a ship and it going down. It just seems like it's horrible. So that's one fear. Another fear that's similar, and I guess some of these are all kind of related, but we were thinking about, Dig, you were talking about materializing these events in your life and possibilities. And I do think about this because it's something I really do want to do, although I know in my mind that I'm never going to get to do, which is go to space. And the reality of suffocating in space is it's never happened, shockingly, to anyone that we've sent up, but that's game over.
I mean,
what'd you say? Yeah, exactly. Maybe. Any NASA product, because we know all that. But you're right. There could be military shit that's happened. Those weird military space shuttles and all that. I don't know. But that if you have a problem with your air supply in space, it's over, and that's got to be a pretty brutal thing to suffocate in like a tin box, basically. So I think about that as a possibility, I guess, although I doubt that will ever happen. And then this next fear I've worked these next 2 fears I've worked really hard to just circumvent as much as I can, which is being buried alive. This is unacceptable. This is completely unacceptable. And I've been so intentional about telling everyone in my life over many years, being like, you better cremate me. Like, you all know. It's on so many, like, that is what I want. You have got to cremate me, and you've got to do it quick. You know, if you think I'm dead, get me in the goddamn thing and kill me already. I don't want to be lingering in some fucking weird state like the David Jaffe shit that he was talking about last.
Do you want to be trapped in an urn, or do you want to get released Donnie style, like Big Lebowski over the Pacific Ocean?
I would like to be spread probably, but it's like,
we're not.
I'll worry about that another time. You know,
you won't worry about it at all.
Well, yeah.
No, you won't.
That's
exactly.
true.
I'm not doing it. I'm going to keep you in a nice little jar on the mantle.
Put me in a mason jar.
Yeah, it could be fun.
My dad specifically told me, like, okay, I want to be cremated, and you better not keep me. Like, don't put me on the mantle. He literally said that to me. Like,
just
don't
spread
do that.
out my ass.
That's creepy.
I don't mind being incinerated, but don't put the lid on because I'm claustrophobic.
And now we're back to that.
Just keep the jar. If it's in a mason jar, just keep the lid off. That's all I ask.
Here's the thing: is that I could be extra annoying and so you can bury the fucking urn in a graveyard for all I care. I just I'll do it all, but I just don't want there to be a body. That's all. And then,
what if I put the bell in the coffin?
Say by the bell. No, I don't like that. Although, speaking of Say by the Bell, you know what I was thinking of when Dagan was talking about the elevator thing earlier was, the most dramatic scene in Say by the Bell was when Mr. Belding's wife goes into labor in the elevator and she's stuck in the elevator with Zach, who basically helps Mrs. Belding give birth to the kid, which is, the older I get, the weirder that becomes.
That's
insanity. In 1992, that wasn't that weird to me, but now that I describe it to you, it's really kind of strange. Like,
Kyle, but
Yeah.
talk to me about I knew about your buried alive fear.
Right.
I can't even watch. Is that Kill Bill 1 or 2 where the bride is buried alive? It's really difficult to watch. Leave it to Quentin Tarantino to like evoke all my fears in like 1 20-minute scene. But you don't have claustrophobia in general.
No,
right?
No. Not general. I mean, I've been watching, I was going to say we, but it's me. I have been watching submarine videos the last few days.
No.
Becoming very middle-aged. And I'm fascinated by it because it is a very judicious use of space. And our stepfather, our mom's longtime partner, Larry, was a submariner and always talked about how like they literally slept on top of like the warheads.
Yeah.
Dude,
And they were saying, and they would be told like, do not face this part of the ship. Like we have no more space for anyone, but this is about as close as we're gonna be able to get anybody to this nuclear warhead.
I'm schwitzing even thinking about something.
So I wouldn't want, but I think I wouldn't want to be in that situation, but it doesn't really freak me out. It's like an airplane. It doesn't freak me out. It's not ideal. The whole buried alive thing just seems like horrifying. That's horrible, dude. I don't even know. I can't be in that position. So just make sure I'm not in that position. And then finally,
just start practicing your 3-inch punch.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I'm like, it worked out ultimately. I mean, I want to say worked out, but that situation didn't stay the way it was. Let's say.
Yes. No.
In Kill Bill. And then finally, my final fear is, I guess, what I would call a living fear, which is destitution. And I don't know. I know how much people struggle out there. I think if you make, it's something like if you make $30,000 a year, you are in the top 1% in the world.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, in the world. Okay.
In the world, yeah.
Okay.
And just for a global human perspective, right? So I try to keep things into perspective in that way. We watch shows of people going overseas and going to all these places. And I'm like, man, like someone was in Vietnam. We were watching a video yesterday and we can go here and disappear forever. You know, I don't think we would have to worry about anything here, except for the fact that our grandfathers and their grandfathers are fighting a brutal 10-year war against each other. Maybe we would disappear for different reasons. But I'm worried, generally speaking, in an American sense about destitution. And I've been really cognizant the last few years, especially of just class and the idea of class as this cudgel and what unifies and binds people and how it can really affect massive change, or at least show a counter fist to the government, like what you're seeing. And whether you agree with it or not, it seems somewhat logical what's going on in France to me, but the French are not fucking around right now at all. Like in a great tradition of the French not fucking around. And that brings to bear like a real power of the people. But nonetheless, I still worry on an individual level. I just making sure I have what I need and making sure I don't have to be a burden to anyone, or that I don't run out of things, or whatever the case might be. And so I've really lived my entire adult life in the pursuit of security. And so if I had one living, actual, probably tangible fear that's not like, oh, I'm going to drown. I mean, I'm saying that now, I'm going to hit my head outside in the pool and fucking drown. And everyone's like, wow, it's really ironic. And then I have this buried alive fear and all of this, but you guys will ensure that that doesn't happen to me. So this is like the fear that I feel like could confront me, or that I could confront. And I do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen. And
because it's realistic. But Colin, you know what? I don't want to play therapist with you, but I kind of do a little bit, because I know how you feel about this, and I know your conviction behind it. But trace it back. Like where do you think this stems from? Because not only are you very successful, but you've always been very smart, and I think you've always been very capable, and you're very talented. So like, you know, you have multiple talents. So it does seem like all fears, right? Like my counting the train lights in the Hudson Tunnel, like it's all
you would have freaked
irrational.
out in San Francisco because the trains used to get stuck in the tunnels all the time. I mean, on a constant basis. I was stuck in tunnels so many times.
I would worry about the people around me. You know, like I don't want to get sidetracked, but I got stuck in an elevator once. It was for minutes. I mean, it felt like it was like for 3 hours, but it was probably 3 minutes. And I was with an elderly lady, a stranger who was going to a different floor. I worked on the 10th floor at the time. And I freaked her out. You know what I mean? Just because I wasn't, you know, screaming bloody murder or anything like that. But And I'm actually, oddly, I'm comforted by other people. Like, I'd be more afraid if I was by myself, which is if you're worried about air and space and everything like that. It's like the opposite of what would be logical.
Air on the elevator. That's
right?
interesting.
Like, it's just my mind.
The elevator is airtight, you think?
I don't know what I'm thinking. That's the thing. But I remember freaking her out. She was easily in her 70s. There was no reason.
So you should have probably been
she was calm.
Her. Yeah.
Like, she wasn't, but I could tell, like,
she's been there before.
My hang up was definitely having an impact on her. I don't know if she was horrified of me or if I was making her nervous where she normally wouldn't be. But that's that's that. So that's my little takeaway with that. But yeah, that's what I worry about, is not only embarrassing myself, because I've certainly been in that situation where I've embarrassed myself in a claustrophobic situation that really wasn't necessary. But that, like, I would just basically freak people out. I don't even know what I would do. Like, I get so nervous that I feel like I'm going to, like, this is going to end. If I don't get out of this tunnel, or I don't get out of this stuck elevator or whatever it is, I'm going to have a heart attack. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to, either this is really going to end, this is going to end in my death. You know what I mean? Like, that's how bad, that's how palpable the fear is. But I am wondering with you, like, and it is, I kind of feel for you with this, because what you're saying, all the fears that we've all four talked about, this is a realistic one. Like, this is one that seems like, it's not like drowning in the vacuum of space, for instance. Like, your fears really run the gamut of reality. What's real.
It's like conspiracy theories, right? Like, you pepper people with a bunch of conspiracy theories, and then you throw one in where it's like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe there's. But
where does that come from with you? Because I'm genuinely curious.
I think, Micah, you've analyzed this in some sense, right? I mean, in our conversations. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. What always comes up with Colin is that he sees money like as like security. That money is this, it's a tangible thing of, I'm gonna be okay. Like, I have enough to pay my mortgage. I have enough to pay my bills. Like, it's something tangible that you can look at and say, I'm good right now. But when Colin sometimes speaks about like our finances, and it's almost as if I have to remind him, like, we have enough money right now to pay the mortgage for, like, you could pay off the house type deal. Like, we don't have to worry about this. Like, we're not frivolous people by any means, but it's a matter of like, we are okay. And sometimes it's just like, it almost feels like Colin doesn't realize like how okay we are. And it's just this like deep seated fear in the back of his head that like, we're going to lose the house. And I'll say like, that's impossible. It's things like that. But I think it is just Colin and I both, like, we moved a lot as kids. I think a big part of it is just holding on to something and just being secure in your housing and everything. It seems like that's a large part of it.
That's very good. That's very smart.
I can kind of relate to that in a certain sense, because like there was a time whenever Emily and I first got married where after all of our like essential bills, I'm not talking like Netflix or internet. Well, actually, I guess internet was kind of essential, I guess. But anyway, like essential bills, food, barely enough, everything like that. When we first got married, like we'd literally have $16 a month left over because of what I was making. It was just the two of us. And like at the time, I think it was like 8 of that went to Netflix because that was the only form of entertainment we had, and we couldn't afford to go anywhere. So we might as well watch TV at home, right? So, and I was like, okay, like this kind of sucks, but it is what it is. And I'm going to, try to make more money, but I have the job I have. And I was less worried about money then than now. And I mean, I've got kids now, and not that I'm poor or anything, but like I don't have, it's not like I have a ton of money, but I have plenty to provide for all my needs. And like, I'm not worried that if something falls through or I have a high energy bill or something like that, then I'm going to be kicked out of my house next month. But like, I feel like I'm more worried about money now than when I had $16 a month of wiggle room, and again, like, it's not like if Colin dropped dead and I lost my job, God forbid, it's not like I could just sit around for forever and not work or anything. But I certainly wouldn't have to worry about, being evicted or having my house foreclosed on next month or anything. But I'm still like more cautious about money now. And I think part of that does come with like, I have to provide for my, my family.
Sure.
But it is weird. I understand, like, we're in different situations, but like, I feel like the more money I have, the more I worry about it, which,
more money, more problems.
Nah, right. Yeah, to some extent, I suppose. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
it's true. It's kind of true. Yeah. There's definitely like I know exactly what you're saying, Ben. Like there's an in between point where you're not living paycheck to paycheck, but you're not making $500,000 a year. Where and you know what? I feel like once the income gets ratcheted up, like Colin and I do fine. We're never going to be millionaires, but I do feel like when you grow in income and then you the natural, authentic lifestyle changes that come with that, you know what I mean? So and I think it's been tough too with inflation. Like at first the inflation thing seemed kind of artificial. And then, I would say certainly in the last year and a half, it's like, no, there's a huge difference in my grocery bill. Like this is not the way it was in 2019, for example,
right?
Only a few short years ago. So it is, it is complicated. It is, it sucks to like when I start worrying about, money, which is like a normal people for, folks of all walks of life. Then it's like one of those things, like one of those palpable fears. And just as a worrier in general, like I always try to take a step back and be like, you know what, like this is a one-time, go around, like enjoy it. I'm not going to stress too much. So I'm always trying to, because I am authentically a worrier, like always trying to kind of, I don't know, hit the refresh button on that. You know what I mean? Like, fuck it. I'm not worrying about this. Like it'll work out. Like you gotta, it's like everything. It's like creativity. You gotta have that like, fuck it, carefree, it'll work out attitude. And then that trying too hard and pressing and then just sort of meet in the middle. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of philosophy I try to apply to it. I'm not a financial expert, but that's what I do when I start worrying about this and that and, moving and God forbid, you know what I mean? Like, and also counting your blessings, whether you're religious or not, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, whatever happens, then you'll evolve and adapt. And I'm going through that now with my career. It's like, I'm kind of turning back to square one in a lot of ways. And a lot of that is for the financial benefits that'll come from, kind of learning some new tricks, in not so many words. So yeah, I can relate to everything you just said, but it's tough. And you know what? These kids, they're expensive.
Yeah.
They're expensive, man.
It's funny because, we would always be like, oh, all of our friends who were our age are like, oh, we want to wait till we have money to have kids. And I'm like, well, if you wait till you have money to have kids, you'll never have kids because you never feel like you have enough money. But I noticed that like when we first had kids, it's like, wow, I haven't spent almost anything on these things. Like these things are cheap. But then as they get older, of course, that's when you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So they have hobbies and they have interests and they want to do things. And my kids aren't even teenagers yet. Dagan, I'm sure that's a whole different ball game.
It's tough.
Yeah.
You know what? I felt like the biggest wringing of the money with the kids for us, because we both worked and I was out of the house for so long because I had the 6-hour commute and I was in New York. So, and I wasn't making enough money to just live on one income, not the way we live. We probably could have done that, but not the way we wanted to live. So daycare, you know what I mean? And we opted for not doing the daycare center or the, the building or the company. We had nannies. And that was a big, especially being younger, being in our early 30s, for instance, and having a nanny, having somebody on the payroll at whatever she made, $15 an hour or something. That was a lot for us. We're not a corporation. We're paying somebody $15 an hour. When the kids got old enough to be in school during Colin's workday, thank God she's a teacher. So the daycare thing went out the door once they were enrolled in full-time school, once they hit first grade. So that was a big relief financially. But then there's that middle age that you're probably going through now. But then when they hit their teenage years and like you said, the activities and needing money to go out. And, my daughter's on the cusp of getting a car. So
and then, Japanese Famicom cartridges
and college, you know what I mean? Just kind of trying to sock away for school, which, I'm not sure. My kids are both school bound. I mean, they're both probably art school bound.
Yeah.
So there's that. You know what I mean? That's just a reality too. I don't want them to have to foot the bill for college like I had to do, Dad. We got you, Dad.
That's the thing
Gotcha.
too, is like whenever we do have those conversations about money, Emily is very like she basically, since we had kids, she hasn't worked outside the home, and she does some work for her mom's a real estate agent. She'll do some work for her whenever she needs help, and make some a couple $100 here or there. But we've always talked about like, actually, I've never suggested it. I never want to suggest it because that was like our intention when we got married, was like we want to have kids. Mm-hmm. And we want her to be able to stay home, and we'll live how we need to live. And so every time we have to have any kind of conversation, which is not like it's frequent, but we have to have any kind of conversation about money, she's like, well, I can get a job. Like, I don't mind working, especially like, going and doing something part-time. But she homeschools the kids right now. And it's like,
oh, right.
So, which is great. We love that. Huge. I don't want to give that up if we don't have to. But I know that like, if they end up going to school, or they have to get daycare, or, have to go somewhere and we have to pay for childcare, like that's going to cancel most of that out. And like, for me, would I rather be a little more conservative and tight with money, or have my children's education and lives dramatically changed?
Right.
And that they may not be homeschooled forever. I think it's very dependent upon their progress and situations in our district and stuff like that. But there are those choices you make too, where it's like, for some people that is the right move, and for other people it's like, well, what am I giving up in order to have a few extra dollars? So
yeah,
it's important to me.
Yeah, it's a compromise, and it's a value thing. Like, right. I admire what you guys are doing. That's, and you're kind of on the same page too, which is important. Yeah. With a spousal situation.
Well, she wrote the page and I just signed it.
There you go. That's more accurate. That sounds familiar.
All right, Micah, let's hear from you in your topic.
Oh, all right. So, spring, it's here. And with spring comes one of the best food holidays, which is Easter. And Easter is a fun one for me. I didn't get to celebrate it as a kid because I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. So I remember getting an Easter basket once. Like I do have like one memory of getting an Easter basket. It was fantastic. And then that went away forever. But now, as an adult, I get to celebrate Easter again. And for me, Easter is just one of the top food holidays. Easter has the best candy. My favorites being the Cadbury cream eggs. You have the Russell Stover marshmallow treats. I mean, they have those at Christmas too, but Easter and Christmas for those. And then my absolute favorite being the Whoppers malted eggs, which are just top tier candy. So Easter has a real lock on the holiday candy market. And then Easter also has ham, typically. I mean, if you're having ham on Easter, you're doing it right. I think you should have ham at every holiday, but no one else seems to really enjoy ham as much as I do. But it's my favorite of the meats.
Ham's great. I love ham.
It's the king of the meats, and everyone's like, I'd rather have steak. No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Right. That's what I'm saying. Right. Ham, okay. King of the meats.
Understood.
I actually ran a poll in 8th grade. I surveyed every student in my class what their favorite meat was. It was like ham, turkey, or steak. And I think steak ended up winning and ham came in last place.
But you're saying ham over a beautiful piece of steak.
Oh, absolutely. I don't like steak that much. I mean, if you're giving me a nice spiral, honeycoat ham, oh my God.
Okay. All right.
No, ham is the best. And my dad and I call Easter Ham Day. Because neither of us are religious, but we enjoy the family time. It's what it's about for me. So it's spending time with family. It's about pastel decorations and ham. And so I really get excited for it. And I wanted to know for you guys, how you feel about Easter. And even like the funny thing, for us too, is like still navigating around the Easter bunny and stuff like that within the family and feeling like, when do we stop?
When do we get rid of this preposterous... When am I allowed to stop
doing this?
Yeah, this preposterous... I can't believe... The Easter Bunny is just outrageous. Yeah.
It's also usually terrifying. Like the Easter Bunny at the mall, it's one of the scariest things I've ever seen.
So my 7-year-old is still very much like believes in Santa Claus. And we've told him, Like, hey, this is just a game we play. Like, because our 9-year-old hasn't believed in Santa Claus for years. It's like me. When I was like 3 years old, I asked my mom if the wise men and Santa Claus visited Jesus at the same time. And she was like, we have to have a discussion. But that's kind of how my older kid is. But my 7-year-old is like, no, Santa Claus is real. And we're like, buddy, it's just a game we play. Like that, it's not real. We've never told them like factually, like, he's like, no, Santa Claus is real. I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, we're telling you the truth. If you want to continue, I don't know if he's still playing a game, whatever. But I brought up the Easter Bunny, just like joking, like, oh, the Easter Bunny's going to come soon. And he was like, Dad, the Easter Bunny isn't real. And I was like, he's not? And he's like, no, that's stupid. And I was like, but Santa Claus is real. And he's like, yeah. What do they have to do with each other? Like something like that. It's really funny. But
it's
Mike,
like
I have to ask
conspiracies.
you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mike, I have to ask you though, when you talk about ham, what are you a fan of, like getting the big roaster, a real ham, or do you like the and I'm not saying this derogatorily, the store-bought like congealed thing of ham that you cut up and put in a roaster? Like which ham is authentic?
All ham.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
Because I'm just a fan of, my grandma used to buy those adorable little daisy canned hams, and you wouldn't believe how excited I'd get for that little triangle ham. Like I would go nuts for it. And then also my dad though will buy like a really nice like spiral cut, honey glazed ham. So and then having friends that have like smokers at their house, and they'll get like a proper ham and smoke it for hours and hours. I just love ham. It's the best lunch meat. It's the best
ham
meat.
is a great lunch meat.
It's fantastic.
Not the best,
you
but
go to
very
Subway,
high quality. Very high quality.
You go down to Subway and you get a Subway melt, no cheese. That's ham, turkey, and bacon. It's the best sandwich they got. You can't beat that.
We were doing so well. Why did you take it to Subway? Like, why did you have to do that?
By the way, Mike and I had a conflict the other day because she sometimes gets cold cuts and they don't cut them right. And then and I'm like, why are you bringing these cold cuts home? Like why once or twice is fine, but now this is happening like once every 4 times. We can't allow people to be cutting the ham this thick. We can't allow people to be cutting the turkey this thick.
Too thick. Okay.
No,
Too
I'm
thick.
gonna allow it. Yeah, but it's also, the thing about it is, so Colin had said, he said, well, the cold cuts are expensive. And that's where I draw the line, because it's like when we have cold cuts for dinner, we're talking about, this is a $15 dinner. I buy $12 worth of cold cuts, a package of rolls. And so it's like, in the grand scheme of things, I know what you're saying, but if the cold cuts are 1/8 of an inch thick and you wanted them to be a 16th, it's like, it's only a $15 dinner.
Right, but also
it's not an expensive dinner.
But also, it's not what I want, right? So
right, but also you don't go to the store and deal with the deli people who are true. I'm going to tell you something about the Publix deli.
Yeah, tell me about it.
The people working there are deficient.
Oh, you said you saw them getting like scolded, right?
They were getting dressed down by this manager the last time I was there. It was incredibly awkward. But you'll say, "Can I get a 1/4 pound of turkey sliced very thin?" They'll say, "Okay." They will stand there and stare at you for a few seconds. Then get the turkey. What'd you say, turkey?
Why?
And then they'll put it on the slicer. Start talking to another employee about literally anything, and they're not slicing it. So the problem really is just that it's like, I already spend 10 minutes at the deli. If they don't slice it correctly, I'm supposed to wait 10 more minutes, ask them to do it again.
Southern culture coddles this sort of behavior. I want everyone to know that.
It's accepted.
Nobody is upset. Like, you'll be in a line 10 people deep at the deli, and they are talking about Netflix, and they're not even slicing anything. Like, they put the meat on the slicer and just stand there.
That would never.
I know it sounds like, exactly. I was like, I know it sounds like such a stupid thing, but it's like, that would never, ever happen on Long Island. Just never.
No.
Well,
no. Somebody would get murdered. Somebody would die.
No.
Derek had said he can't watch them slice it. He gets so angry with how slow they are at slicing. He's like, I ask for the meat. I say, I'll be right back. I go get the produce, whatever else. And he's like, I can't watch them slice it.
That's a good strategy.
It is. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
It's maddening.
Yes.
They also don't have a ticket system, right?
No, they don't. You just walk up and
that's absurd.
That's you cause so much chaos. But it's Southern culture doesn't see it's just different here. If you had that on Long Island, it wouldn't work. Maybe people would freak out. They wouldn't like that because they don't want they need to know where they go. They need to know what order they go in.
There's going to be bloodshed.
Exactly.
I'm in Philly, and there's a supermarket chain that does that, and I'm like, I feel like they're doing it for entertainment value, because this is going to cause a conflict every 5 minutes. People are in a rush. They're up in arms. When I go in the supermarket, I'm hoping Helene doesn't have a deli order on the list, because I'm like, I'm going to have to deal with this thing. I'm going to have to deal with something. Something is going to go awry here. I don't know what. I don't know if I'm going to get their order wrong, or somebody's going to try to cut in line, or if this is going to be slow, right? It's full of grief. I don't want agita when I go food shopping.
No, I hate going to the deli. And part of it is, not having the numbers. People do sometimes try to cut you in line. Like because there's two, scales. So you kind of align yourself in one of them, but they're not static lines. I'm not saying I'm waiting in this line and you're in that line. Like, I'm still next. I was here before you.
The thing to remember,
people will try to edge their way in.
The thing to remember is that the people in line are just as or more deficient than the people who are cutting the meat. So you can't expect people like that to figure out how it works without the number system.
No, you have to be very defensive at the Publix deli, because there's no one to back you up. Like, you need to know who I was there before this guy. That's all I need to know. I was here before you. I'm next. Because they'll start trying to edge in, and they'll be like, who was next? And like, you see someone start raising their hand. It's like, you weren't.
No, definitely not. You got to step in. You got to be assertive. Like, the older I've gotten, the more assertive I've been with that. It's like, no, this is no way. Like, I definitely had like more awkward situations where I'm like, nope. Like, God. Sorry, not definitely not your turn. But like when I was younger, I was more demure, let's say.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's worth, like, I think if you choose lines, that's different. I always choose the wrong line. I always choose the wrong line. Too. But if I just get, like, we go to a FedEx store or a UPS store, and you can go in 2 doors. Sometimes the line's out one door. Sometimes the line's going the other way. It's like, so someone comes in one store and it's like, you got to go to, and then everyone's kind of grilling the dude to make sure he's not going to try anything funny. Then you're going to kind of rely on the people up front to keep order as well. You think it would be in their interest to make it very clear how everything worked.
Mm-hmm.
If I were at the deli, I would need the numbers. You'd want to have the numbers, but seeing them get dressed down, that's good, because see, Publix they're the keepers of the boar's head. We can't go and get it at Kroger or something like that. We got to go to Publix.
I like that supermarket. We don't have it, but I like it because they carry a nice selection of beers as well. And Boar's Head is a big perk. Listen, this has come up a couple of times on Constellation so far. What are we in episode 13? I'm going in, guys. I'm going to put my investigative reporter hat on. I'm going to talk to the store manager out by me. It's Wise Supermarket, WEIS, which is pretty awful, but it's just convenient. It's right down the street. I'm going to find out what the philosophy is behind this no number at the deli counter thing. They're bucking hundreds of years of tradition with this.
Time immemorial.
Time immemorial. It's got to stop. I mean, I do feel like it's some sort of experiment. Like it's just like, it's like the aliens, like, what will these people do? This deli is such an important thing in their society. What will happen if we throw this kind of curveball in and just take away the number system? Let's see how the humans react.
It's definitely good for efficiency. It's definitely great for efficiency. No doubt about it. It's like, whoa, it's ridiculous. The best I ever had was Bay Cities, which is a one-off deli in Santa Monica. I used to order online there, and you could order like whatever you wanted, and then you just go pick it up. And that place was, anyone who knows Bay Cities knows that place is slammed all of the time. And if you go in there and you could take a number. If you go in there and take a number, you're going to wait probably an hour literally to even get, like, for them to call your number. So I used to go online, you get the half pound of this, quarter pound of this, slice like this, and it was always right, and it was always well done, and you go and just pay for it, and it's beautiful. And I don't understand, probably grocery stores do have this option, but they should have like a deli app of some sort. They do. Yeah. So like if they do, then you interact and I make sure it's like, this better be fucking thin.
Yeah, some of them do. Some of them don't. Giant does that by me, where, you go in the little kiosk, put your order in, they call it when you go food shopping, go about your business, be efficient. They call your number, you go pick it up. They have a little cold case where they put your order with the little receipt on top.
Yeah, that's 67. The golden. That's the ticket right there, man. I mean, that's perfect.
And the deli, you know what? The deli employees get to deal with less people. They're pigs and shit. You know what I mean? They're in hog heaven, man. They don't have to deal with the customer. And if they get your order wrong, you're not going to find out till you get home.
Right.
They're
living large.
They're living high in the hog, my friend.
All right. Who haven't we heard from yet?
Well, we haven't really talked about Easter at all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Ben, talk to me about Easter.
I'm like this with all holidays, is that my mom will always ask, like, what does everybody want for, Easter dinner or whatever? I'm like, something good. Like, for me, the idea is, like Micah said, I mean, I am religious, and we do observe holidays in that respect, but there's very much too, like, when we're getting together for food and stuff, like, I want, it's about the family. And what do you want for Thanksgiving? Do you want this and this and this? And I'm like, sure, I guess. What do you want for Christmas? Yeah, sure, yeah, sounds good. Bring me the sweet potato casserole. Bring me the green bean stuff. I don't know what everything's called. Yeah, okay, it's Thanksgiving. Yeah, we should probably have turkey. Sure, if we want to, I guess. But I'm also okay with ham, or if you offered me a ribeye every holiday, that'd be just as good for me. The holiday and the food, the attachment isn't together for me. It's just like, well, it's a holiday and we're all getting together, therefore I expect to have like a full cooked meal.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it is fine. But I do love the ham for sure. Like I mentioned, some of those casseroles I really enjoy. But I have, as I've gotten older, and my wife mocks me for this, I have more of a texture issue. And I just don't like things that are slimy or like, I don't know. I can't even really describe it. Like, anything that's mushy.
Okay.
But not anything that's mushy, because there are some mushy things I still like. But for the most part, I just don't, like, I want to chew my food, I guess. And she's like, that's an issue that children have, not that adults have. And I'm like, this adult has it. I'm sorry. I just do. Like, I want to chew my food. I want
no applesauce for Ben.
Yeah.
Applesauce. Okay.
Applesauce is a whole different thing. When I was like a teenager, I had to have this medicine, and I couldn't swallow the pills because they were gigantic. And so, I had to crush them up in applesauce to be able to take them. And now I can't enjoy applesauce because of that. But
it's funny how everyone's childhood just fucked them up so badly.
Yeah. I think that's just like part of our nature somehow. I don't know how we, didn't evolve out of that or whatever. But
what about cranberries, Ben? Cranberry sauce.
I like the taste of it, but I have to like not think about what I'm doing when I eat it. Yeah. So, but I'm just like a texture is a big thing for me now, and it's only been within like the last 5 or 7 years. I'll tell you what, right at the beginning of like the COVID era, when we were at the restaurant brewery I had, we were doing all like takeout, and so I'd be there all day, just like whatever, helping out in the kitchen, because we didn't have the ability to have a whole bunch of staff in. And we made chicken wings, and I would get chicken wings, and I love chicken wings. And so I'd get like, 6 for lunch or something. And one day I just bit into one, and I was like, oh, I hate chicken wings now.
Oh.
And now I've come back from that a little bit. And maybe that was just part of the, COVID, I don't know, whatever was happening in my brain at the time. But they have to be like, I can't have them super mushy. I don't want them, dry.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, I was just all of a sudden like, it was a texture thing. Just came out of nowhere. So this weird stuff's developing with my tastes here in my mid 30s, I suppose. But yeah, so I'm with Micah though on the candy. Like, obviously Easter has the best candy. I also grew up, Micah, I wasn't Jehovah's Witness, but we where my dad went to college, because he went to college to be a pastor, and he did the whole get married, have kids, then go to college thing. He did it slightly backwards. And so like they were very strict on, like, it was a very conservative school he went to. And it was like, we kind of don't do the whole Easter candy and gift thing. And so like growing up, we didn't really go trick-or-treating because, Halloween's evil. And then like I'm in my 20s and getting married and having kids, and my parents had not been as conservative for a long time by that point. But it was like, we got to take the kids trick-or-treating. Let's get them an outfit. Let's, do this. And then Easter, like here's $75 worth of candy, and we bought them a couple presents, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I missed this whole era of life. I didn't get to enjoy the Reese's eggs for 18 years, and now all of a sudden. So anyway, Easter has the best candy for sure. but I'm also like, I really like the candy, but I know myself well enough to know that like I can choose a thing or two and then I have to be done, because I will. Like, some people are like, oh, I can't eat too much sweet stuff. I can. So I have like, the only thing that keeps me from eating all of it is a little bit of self-control, because that specific type of candy I'm very, very into. I like gummy stuff, which is huge around Easter, obviously. I like peanut butter and chocolate together, of course. But again, I have to be like, I want one or two, like I have to pick out what I want and set it aside for myself and then walk away, because I'll just like, the bowl will be empty if I'm sitting with it in my lap or something. So the ham's good.
Some of those candies are dangerous.
Yeah, they're
like,
real.
I really love jelly beans, which are an Easter staple, and the popcorn jelly beans are my favorite.
Yeah.
But you can go overboard on those very easily. They're
I think I mentioned on the last time I was on that I really don't even eat like that much in a day. My wife, who is a fifth my size, eats like 4 times as much as me. But sometimes I'll like look at one of those Reese's eggs, which I'm still going to eat it, but I'll look at it and I'm like, this is more calories than I've eaten than I will eat all day today in this one Reese's egg. And I mean, it's a holiday, right? American, we make up excuses to eat more. But yeah, I like Reese's eggs and I like ham, Micah. I'm with you. I'll eat a steak any day over ham. But if you have any other meats, I'll choose the ham.
What about you, Dagan?
Ham is under. Yeah, I mean, Easter, God, you're opening up a can of worms with these topics, Micah. I love it. I mean, Easter, the first thing I thought about when I saw your email was, Easter for us was such a huge family event, much like Christmas growing up. And I always thought about Easter as second Christmas because Colin knows this. And my parents were not notoriously very easy to get over on, but we somehow instituted a trick with Easter where we were able to get, it was just an accepted notion that we were able to get one big gift in our Easter basket, like a toy, right? And I grew up, I talk about this all the time, like it was like Christmas and a good report card. So there was like 5 times a year we were allowed to get a little treat, like a toy, or go a trip to the toy store and get something modestly priced, a little treat for no other reason. And my grandparents really, and my aunts and uncles had to fill in the gaps because we didn't get a lot for no reason. We weren't spoiled children. But Easter, we instituted this whole understanding, like, all right, we're able to ask for something that's like a legitimate toy. So I think it started for me being the oldest. I probably was the one to usher in this tradition of I didn't get Optimus Prime for Christmas. And I was crestfallen, right? So I think I started this whole thing, and I was probably like 10 at the time. Like, I'm going to ask for Optimus Prime in my Easter basket. And they went for it, and then it became a thing, right? And that was like, so that was always my big thing. Even when I kind of grew out of toys, it was like a video game in the Easter basket or, a pair of skateboard wheels and trucks or something. I always was able to kind of finagle a little extra because I wasn't really big on the candy, because I realized you guys are all young enough, especially you, Ben and Micah, but when we were little, I remember the Easter basket being like the crappy candy. It was like those generic, oversized jelly beans, that weren't the Jelly Bellies. It was those disgusting, hollow chocolate bunnies from like Cheap John's, like the dollar store. It was because I was always a mark. I didn't have a huge sweet tooth, but like I wanted my candy to be brand name. Like, give me the Nestle Crunch, give me the Twix, give me the Jelly Bellies when those came out, give me the Haribo gummy bears. But that was not the Easter basket. The Easter basket was like the bulk shitty candy. So having that one treat that was like a toy to look forward to was always something. And the other tradition I always laugh at, which was like an Easter institution in my family. And Colin will probably remember this, even though he was pretty young. Our Easter was almost always at my grandparents' house, at least when I was on the younger side, which was like a 40-minute car ride to Western Long Island. But we always started the day. I remember the vibes, just like warm weather, spring setting in. Our sisters were wearing dresses. I had to get dressed up for the only time during the year, like proper slacks and a button-down shirt and shoes that weren't Vision streetwear or ripped up Chucks, and our first stop would be right near our grandparents' house. We would go, again, morbid Catholic tradition. Let's go visit our dead ancestors at the graveyard, put an egg on the gravestone, right? But it sounds worse than it was. Like there was a festive air about it. You know what I mean? It was like we dyed Easter eggs. We did ones for grandma. We did ones for Gramps. These people had been dead for years, and we're going to put it on the gravestone. And that's how we always started every Easter.
And then some bird came and took it away. Like,
or a squirrel.
I can't believe that's a real thing.
Yeah, can you explain the egg thing?
This was
You're leaving eggs at the cemetery.
Leaving eggs. Maybe you had flowers too, but it was our...
Flowers is logical to me. I mean, only because it's tradition I've heard of, but...
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing too. Like, it wasn't like we were the only ones. Like, there were eggs all over the graveyard. Really? There was eggs all over the cemetery. Hard-boiled eggs.
You're just asking for some of the youths to come around and cause trouble, just like smashing eggs on gravestones.
Right. Or the woodchucks. They loved it. You know what I mean? It's like, we're eating tonight, boys, type of thing. So hilarious tradition.
There's somehow a fox infestation at the cemetery. We have no idea how it started.
Every mid-April, it's like, why are there so many foxes?
There's like hundreds of thousands of calories, just free calories for the animals.
I don't think we ever missed a beat. Like, probably from the time I was, a year old or so to when our parents split up when I was 16, 17 years old. That was always the way we started Easter. And then it would go on to tradition. This was always a thing too. We would have to visit our Poppy's house, our paternal grandfather, which is the side of the family that we were less close to. And it was like we only saw them on Easter and maybe one other occasion a year. So there was always that awkwardness and we didn't really know them as well, Mm-hmm. But our parents were like, we have to visit Poppy and your aunts and uncles are going to be there.
And the pet ferret.
Side, so. The ferret, they had the pet. Was Poppy married?
Yeah, he had
to Joan? They were married. They were actually
right.
properly married, right? And her son had a pet ferret who was like part of the family. Did he run around loose in the house?
I don't even remember, to be honest.
I don't remember. But, we had to get through that. There was always that barrier for entry for finally getting to grandma's house and being able to relax and have food and celebrate with everybody. And you know what? The one generic Easter candy I did like that I'm very surprised you guys haven't mentioned is the Peeps.
Peeps. I love Peeps.
Which is before, and you got to understand, we had now there's all these designer Peeps, limited edition and bacon, fondue flavored or whatever. Like back then we had pink and yellow Peeps. That's what we had in the 70s and 80s,
No, it's a way of doing something, I think.
Okay. No, I legitimately wasn't sure.
That was
cheese flavored.
That wasn't literally a legit thing. And then the other thing that I remember about Easter is just really that being the always my second favorite, and I think a lot of it came down to the toy in the Easter basket, but also just because that was finally one other occasion between Christmases that you could get together and have the big meal and be with family, have a great time. Again, baseball was on TV. Our grandma was a huge Dodgers fan, and a Mets fan, so they would always have baseball on TV. And it was just the vibes, with growing up with that and something to look forward to. And the other thing that I remembered, Colin, you'll remember this too, is that, and I'm not sure, I would always love to know where our Uncle Mike got this from, who Micah knows very well. Ben, you met Uncle Mike down in Virginia too, right? He started this tradition, and I like to think he invented it, but he might have gotten it from somewhere, where at Easter, he would implement this giant Easter egg hunt with the plastic eggs, but there wasn't candy or change inside. There were little slips of paper that he wrote on. And then, so you'd collect the eggs, and then you would redeem your prize, whatever. You would split them. Everybody would have their haul, and then you'd split the egg open, see what you got. And some were good, legit prizes, cash, or something desirable. And some were straight up booby prizes, like fake dog poop and stuff like that. And that carried over into being a dad for me, because we do that with the kids now. And the other thing is, I kind of used that and borrowed that a little bit. Like when my son was younger and he had birthday parties at the house, we would have games like beer pong or whatever type of thing we would do with the kids. And then they would, it wasn't beer. There wasn't beer. It was like soda pong.
What are you doing over there?
But they would kind of put their hand in a grab basket and take like a slip of paper, and they would get like a cool, like a PlayStation gift card or like a can of Alpo. You know what I mean? It would be like, and the kids would be super bummed when they got like a shitty prize, but then they'd have to get something good.
Throw the fucking Alpo through your window. Like a brick.
So that was always a big, you know, Uncle Mike was such an important part of growing up because he made everything fun. He was like the one adult that like was so childlike. Like I felt like he was thinking like a kid. It's so funny too, because I think Ben looks like a younger Uncle Mike, and that always trips me out. They have something, you have an Uncle Mike vibe to you.
I've heard that before.
So that's like, yeah, it's like Uncle Mike the sequel. But yeah, but Easter, and you know, I'll come down on the ham too. Like, I think I agree with Micah. Micah has some wild food takes, let's be honest. But the ham, underrated meat. Mm-hmm. Definitely underrated meat. I go for a nicely cooked, on the rare side, steak over ham. But you know what? I'm so tired of chicken at this point that I might agree with you, Mike. I might put ham, for me, I think it's in second place. I think it's probably an easy second place, you know, and it's versatile. And you know what? It's hard to, the other thing is you could be a pretty bad cook. You could have some pretty shitty kitchen skills. It's pretty hard to fuck up the ham. Can't overcook it.
Very juicy.
It's delicious.
Yes.
Absolutely delicious.
Very juicy. Yeah.
No, we want to talk about wild food takes. When you mentioned Peeps, my favorite way to eat Peeps, and my dad as well, is you open the package and you leave it for a day. And then the next day, they're a little bit stale. Because we love stale food, my dad and I. And stale Peeps, stale marshmallows is like the pinnacle of stale food. Because you got like stale Ritz crackers, right? That's one. Or like a stale tortilla chip, a circus peanut left out. But like actually popcorn, movie theater popcorn is my favorite one. You save it for the next day or 2 days later. And it gets a little bit of chewiness to it. But stale Peeps, if you get some Peeps this Easter, you crack open that package, you leave it open till the next day. That's when they're at their best.
I understand the like gummy foods being stale and liking that. You know, popcorn, I'm not a fan myself, but I understand that. But when you talk about soda, you've talked extensively in the past about ginger ale. I'm like, the whole point of drinking soda for me is the carbonation. Like, if it was just like, here's some sugar water that will totally destroy your esophagus, I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, it's putrid, dude. Who the fuck wants to?
But carbonation along with that, absolutely. No. I don't get it.
The carbonation is the bad part. Every night, I have one bubbly, seltzer every day, right?
Yeah.
Every night, I crack it open, and then I go take the dogs outside to go potty, and I leave it for like a half hour usually before I take that first sip.
That's even acceptable. It's when you talk about I like to leave my ginger ale out overnight.
Well, I didn't finish. So I take that bubbly. I'll take that first sip just because I'm dying to have a taste. But in reality, it's at its best about 3 hours after I open it, and that's when I start chugging it. Like I'll take a couple sips. Well, it's flavored.
It's flavored.
It's really.
Is it cold or room temperature, Micah?
I like a room temp water. If I'm being honest with myself, you give me like a room temp Coke or like a room temp bottle of water, I would like it better than if it was cold.
I can understand
when we were
that.
At the we were at the airport and they gave Colin a soda that wasn't cold enough. And he's like, I'm going to get rid of this. And I would have kept it if I didn't have my fear of going to the bathroom on a plane.
Oh, yeah.
But like that soda was fantastic. It was just like that perfect level of not cold. It was beautiful.
Not to derail us, but going back to that fear conversation, I think like the worst possible thing for Dagan and Micah combined would be like the bathroom in the plane. You're not only in a confined space, but you're also up high.
I'll shit myself before I do it. Full on. I'm telling you right now, I will not do it.
Note to self.
I've flown 3 times the past couple of years. I refuse to use the bathroom on the plane. Won't do it.
I like using the bathroom on the plane. I always get an aisle seat. I like aisle seats, and it kind of breaks things up a little bit. It's like, all right, I'm going to go to the bathroom, break it. It's like kind of a little intermission.
And there's no way.
And then you go, you stretch your legs, and Yeah, you
No,
can't
but
really
then-
do much in there, but it's fine. You know,
Oh,
it's fine.
no.
No, the turbulence starts and you're trapped in there.
I've
That's
been
always
in
my
some
fear
bad
because we
turbulence
saw
in the
that old
bathroom.
man almost fall. Remember on that flight, that old man almost fell because he was getting up to go to the
Yeah.
bathroom and we hit a little turbulence and he almost just hit the ground.
Oh.
And like the flight attendant came over to help him, and I was like, "That's my fear."
We came in
But
hot
I'm
that
gonna
night.
get
We
up,
came in hot
and that's when it'll happen.
the last time too.
I don't want to
That's
get
hard.
on. I don't want to stand up in planes because a couple of years ago there were these ladies, these women who were like not buckled in, and they hit some turbulence, and one of them like got bumped up and broke her neck on the ceiling.
That's what I'm
above.
talking about.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll
Damn.
just sit here. I'm not afraid to go into the bathroom, but I can hold it. It's fine.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking
terrifying.
about. We're not doing this.
All right. Well, I'll leave it with this Easter stuff. This Easter stuff is I always think Dagan's right, is that we used to get a gift in our younger years for Easter. That stopped after our parents got divorced, but I remember very specifically getting the G.I. Joe tunnel rat for Easter, like very vividly remember that. And yeah, Uncle Mike's egg hunts. I remember my memory of it, I guess, was wrong. Is that I remember I thought there was money in some of them, but I think what you're saying is true. Is that you picked one up and it could have like a $5 bill in it or like a piece of paper that had something stupid on it.
I
or
think
something.
you're right. It
Something-
was like a variety
something like that.
or a penny. You could get $10
Right,
or a
exactly,
penny.
like, and or they're like-
it was very Uncle Mike.
Yeah.
Very mean spirited, but in an awesome way.
Yeah, it was fun. And then the food, I actually think Easter food is generally pretty good. I don't like that people try to sneak turkey into Easter. I feel like
Mhm.
that's a thing that's pretty common here in the US, and I feel like it's a little much, but you get the mashed potatoes going, garlic mashed potatoes, black pepper mashed potatoes, some sort of mashed potato, and you get the yams going, man. I love yams, just so
You
good. And yeah, I do. Why is that
Candied
surprising?
yams.
Very. I'm mostly just because when I ask, like, what are things you want to eat?
You
that's
make
never
sweet
once come
potatoes
up.
though for us.
No, like okay, but when you say yams, that I'm thinking, of
Mike
like
is thinking of a can.
holiday yams.
Yeah, no, those are good.
I'm
those are
thinking
good
of
too.
like holiday,
I like those.
the casserole, not what I make, which is like roasted.
Yeah,
sweet
I
potato.
prefer them
Fresh.
roasted, like more organic style, but no, all sorts of yam. I like yams, sweet potato. It's a good staple of the time of year. And applesauce, I think, is like, this might be the one
yeah.
time a year I eat applesauce, because ham and applesauce go together so well. But yeah, the food's pretty good, but I don't really have any thoughts on Easter. I think it's fairly preposterous with the Easter bunny, and
How
Well,
dare
yeah.
you?
I've always felt that way. And I know it's a big religious celebration, especially for we Catholics and Christians more generally, but I honestly don't care.
One more thing on the religious aspect of Easter. I know this is more about food, but the idea of, because growing up, and maybe this is a tradition in other Christian traditions as well, but growing up, we would always have what they call a sunrise service. And it was like one of the services was super early in the morning on Easter. I guess it was because of resurrection, that being in the morning. What, I don't know. I'm not really sure on the origins other than it was tradition. And I was like, this is the most bullshit thing I've ever heard. Like, I don't do mornings that well. And if like the purpose of going to church is to worship, this is going to be the worst possible time for me to do that of the entire day, is at 6 a.m.
That's tough.
Excuse
Ugh.
me. I don't want. And then add to that, on top of that, it's Easter. So, that could be as early as like early April, which here again, it could be
Yeah.
snowing,
Yeah.
and it could be later into May. And they would have it outside sometimes. So you got to see the sunrise while you're outside on Easter morning. And I'm like, it's 32 degrees. It's 6 a.m. and it's still mostly dark. The last thing I want to do is praise God right now.
Yeah.
Like, I never understood it at all.
That's going to be a long mass too. Like, that's not going to be a traditional,
Right.
like your weekly mass. Let me ask you guys this, because I can't believe I forgot to touch on this. The Easter Bunny. I've always been so torn on this. It's such an amorphous idea to me. Like, I loved the notion of Santa and the Tooth Fairy and Easter Bunny, and just the childlike wonder behind it, and trying to preserve that for my kids for as long as possible and stuff like that. And how divisive that is, because there was people in our family that were like, you're lying to the kids. And I was like, I can't believe this. I can't believe people actually think that. Like, let them be kids and just have fun, while it lasts, because it's going to expire, But the Easter Bunny, I still don't know where I come down. Is the Easter Bunny, is he supposed to be like does he have the anatomy of like a normal bunny, or is it this anthropomorphic Bugs Bunny walking on two legs, human-sized bunny? Because how would the regular, down on all fours traditional bunny carry the basket around? But the Bugs Bunny Easter Bunny is really creepy if you think about it. Like you guys were saying, the mall bunny, right? Especially in those 1950s costumes that were not cute. Like, I feel so bad for like 50s kids. Like that shit was creepy. It was creepy.
Their whole childhood was weird. Yeah.
It was very strange.
What's worse, Dagan? The Easter Bunny on two legs at the mall, or the fairy that sneaks into your room and steals your teeth?
That's another thing. Like, is that a traditional sized human fairy, or is that like Tinkerbell? I just don't know. I need some. We got to flesh these things out. I don't know how to think about it. I kind of like, on one hand, I like the creativity behind, like, kind of paint it with your own brush, but there's no consistency. I don't know what to think.
Now,
I think
for the Easter Bunny, I'll go on.
I was just going to say, I think that movies have destroyed a lot of those, because like you have the Santa Claus 2 version of the Tooth Fairy, who's like a full grown buff man, but has wings and still likes to steal the teeth. And then you also have like the cartoon version of the Easter Bunny that's more like a Tinkerbell or something like that. Yeah. I'm sorry, of the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah. It's I like the artistic interpretation, but I never knew what to think. I honestly, as a kid, like, would think about it to the point of like, it's just gonna be both. And sometimes when I thought about it, it was a little bunny hopping along like you'd see out on your grass, and sometimes it was bugs with an Easter basket.
I think when you start to think that deeply about it, you stop believing in it. I think that's what happens.
I still believe, for the record.
Micah, you were going to say something before we move on.
Well, what I've seen in the suburbs is people get those stencils. So they put like the Easter Bunny's footprints on their driveway.
Okay.
And I want to note that they're always huge.
Oh.
Like, they're always huge. So that seems to be the default, because people have the stencils and they do the chalk. They'll be like, look, the Easter Bunny stopped at our house, and they're fucking huge. So, and it's like more scary when you really think about it. You're like, this is a foot size of like a 7 foot tall man.
Why would an Easter Bunny leave a
they're-
footprint behind anyway?
Well, there's a lot of questions here, but the children,
Is this
that's
like
the
the
age
Donnie
where the children aren't
Darko
questioning
rabbit?
it.
Is that what we're talking about here? Like,
Good call.
As long
Good
as he's
pull.
bringing my eggs.
Yeah, shout out to Eggs, by the way. I mean, we already did that a couple weeks ago, but shout out to Eggs.
Yeah.
All right, let's end this show with our final topic. Ben, let's go to you.
my topic for the week is about sleep, and I left it kind of vague. I was actually thinking about either doing sleep or about doing dreams, and I decided to go with sleep. Maybe dreams will be next time I'm on, but I don't really like sleep. And I mean, obviously we need sleep. It's essential for us to survive as human beings. I get it. But for whatever reason, I've just always not resisted sleep. And I think, I've been blessed with blessed or cursed, I don't know, with the ability to not require a ton of sleep. I normally sleep, 4 to 6, probably averaging at 5 hours a night, and never really noticing much difference in my day-to-day life as opposed to when I get more or less. Too much less is not a good thing for me, but I don't really require a lot of sleep, and I actively dislike the process of going to sleep. And I'm one of those types of people that if I'm ready to go to sleep, I don't go to bed until I'm ready to go to sleep, until I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not somebody who goes and lays in bed and tosses and turns for a long time. And I know a lot of people have trouble getting to sleep. I don't have that. So for me, it's a very painless process, realistically. I just go lay down and I'm asleep. Sometimes I don't even have to. Sometimes I'll fall asleep if I don't want to, if I'm tired enough. But I know some people love sleep and they're like, oh, I can't wait to go to bed. I need my 8 or 9 hours of sleep. And hey, that's fine. But for me, it's just I've never required a lot of sleep. And because I don't require a lot of sleep, it doesn't feel important enough to me to look forward to it or to anticipate it. And it just feels like, well, if I go to sleep, I'm missing out on things I could be doing, whether that's work, which I tend to, have these in addition to my actual job, I have all these little side things I do. Some of them are just for fun, but I'm always turning things I like into work too for some reason because I'm a maniac. But I just I'm like, well, if I could go to sleep, or I could just spend 3 more hours doing this thing that's actually not that important, but I want to do it. And so I just wanted to hear what you guys thought about sleep. Like, do you look forward to it? Is it something you try to actively avoid? I'm by nature a night owl. I'm regularly going to sleep at 4 or 5. I try to get up between like 9 and 11, depends on, how late I actually went to bed. And for me, it's just like sleep is a necessity. And I don't feel better when I wake up. It's just like, I know I need to sleep. And if I don't sleep, I'll feel bad. But if I do sleep, I'm not going to feel any better than I feel right now. So what's the point? Like, it's just, Micah talked about a couple weeks ago about sleep being a portal to breakfast. And I don't eat breakfast either. So it's like, it's totally pointless for me. I'm sleeping in order to wake up and do the things I want to do again. So I don't know. Sound off. Micah, I think you're the biggest fan of sleep here.
Oh, no, I hate sleep.
You hate? I thought you liked sleeping. Okay, I'm learning new things.
Oh, no. No, so like sleep, the only value of it is that it gets me to breakfast. I hate sleep, and I've always hated it because actually I had a sleep disorder when I was a child. It all goes back to my childhood. Yeah. These are my little therapy sessions. But so I had this disorder where I would get into REM sleep and I'd stay there. Mm-hmm. And this lasted my whole childhood through high school. I couldn't wake up to an alarm clock because the sound just didn't reach me.
Yeah.
So every single day, my mom had to shake me awake because I wouldn't wake up. We tried the old timey like alarm that had like the bells on it. Mm-hmm. She put it in the bed next to me. Like nothing would wake me up because I was stuck in that REM sleep. And we just at a certain point just stopped trying to fix it because I got a sleep study done and they explained what was wrong with me. And it's like, look, there's no fixing it. Like she just goes into REM sleep and she stays there. Mm-hmm. And so we stopped trying to like figure it out. But I've always hated sleep. I also like had insomnia when I was a kid. It would take me like 2 hours to fall asleep. It was a nightmare. It was just the worst. And I hate it. I've always hated it. I don't have that sleep disorder anymore. Like I ended up outgrowing that. And so now I can wake up to an alarm and I'm like a normal person. But much like you, I think it's like a waste of time. Mm-hmm. Like in my head, I'm like, I want to read my book. I want to play my video games. I don't want to do this. Like, I hate it. It's just like this. It's just terrible. And I don't like the feeling of falling asleep. Sometimes you psych yourself out because you feel yourself falling asleep. You like, jolt back awake. I don't like that. I don't like dreams. Dreams are the worst. Like there's a lot going on with sleep. And it's dark. It's the dark time. I don't like that either. Yeah. There's a lot of things. I got a lot of problems with going to bed at night. And also you got pajamas, right? And like, because you have to wear, I have pajamas, they're mostly like old t-shirts at this point, like not proper pajama sets, but you got to have pajamas or else I can't sleep. But then sometimes in summer, it's so hot, but I can't sleep without pajamas. Like I can't do it. There is no sleep without them. You got to have a blanket on no matter how hot it is. Like I can't sleep without the blanket. It's just a nightmare. Like from start to finish, sleep is a problem for me. I don't like it. Yeah. And I wake up in the morning and if you sleep too much, you feel like worse most of the time. And that happens a lot because I don't set an alarm anymore because I don't have to. So then I oversleep and I feel like garbage. It's really bad. I don't like it one bit.
I'm with you on the not being able to wake up thing because once I wake up, I feel, I'm fine, but I have a hard time, and probably because my body isn't like fully through the sleep cycle yet because I don't sleep enough, I suppose, although it doesn't seem to affect me mentally or anything. But I have started wearing like my Apple Watch at night because that little bit of like vibration when my alarm goes off on the watch is the only thing that'll actually wake me up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my alarm going off. Sometimes my alarm goes off, I'm awake right away, I'm fine. Other times it's like I'll wake up and it's half an hour after my alarm's just been going off the whole time. So I started wearing the watch. But I said I didn't have any problems going to sleep. When I was a teenager, I had like really bad insomnia. And then I think it was just that I wasn't trying to go to sleep at the right time for however my body chemistry works. Like when I'm on the West Coast, like normal people go to bed at a certain time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm about ready for bed. Like, I'm still a late night person for West Coast, but it's more suitable for me. Like, I was born in the wrong time zone, or I live in the wrong time zone, I suppose.
Dig, where do you stand on the topic of sleep?
I love this topic because we all have an opinion on this. We're all affected by it. We sleep well. We don't sleep well. Somewhere in the middle. I was listening. I'm obsessed with Fran Lebowitz lately. You could watch her documentary series on Netflix. You know, she's just like a humorist, comic, you know, a social commentator. She's really a fascinating person. But she was saying recently, I found out about her, she's like, I sleep an hour or two a night. She's in her 70s. She's, you know, our mom and dad's age. And she's so quick, and she's such a quick wit. And I'm like, how do you operate the way she does, where she has to talk and give lectures, and she's appearing on talk shows, and she's always so intelligent and articulate and funny. So that was fascinating to me. But, you know, you talking, Ben and Micah talking reminded me of something. Growing up as a kid, I was forced to go to bed so early. I talk about this a lot, that I didn't fall asleep as a kid. In fact, I hated sleep partially because it took me an hour or two to fall asleep, because I was forced to go to bed when I wasn't tired, you know? And I'm thinking, like, as an adult, even though I have a very active mind, my mind is always racing. Either I'm fretting about something, or there's some creative concern, or I'm just thinking about something in an upbeat way, you know, or ideating something. Like, my mind's always going a mile a minute. And I'm still, as an adult, able to fall asleep very easily. And that's because I go to sleep when I'm ready to go to sleep. I don't hate sleep, but much like you, Ben, I'm a super night owl, and I always have been. And I think it started to come to a head in art school, you know, / film school. I guess as an animator, we're kind of in art school and film school, and having to stay up late and put so much time into our assignments. And then as a professional animator, just that it's a very time consuming profession. You know, a lot of animators that I know, you know, we're like Navy SEALs, man. We could operate on very little sleep. That's just the way it's always been, especially when I was your age, Ben. But I'll tell you, like, now in my late 40s, at some point in the last few years, there has definitely been a shift. Like, at some point, I started getting, probably only recently, in all fairness, only in the last 2 or 3 years, where I started getting more sleep in spite of myself, and realizing I do feel decidedly different with a 7, 8, even 6 hour sleep versus 2 or 3 hours. And it was always deceptive for me, though, because I would realize as I got a little older in my 40s, like, all right, I got 2 hours of sleep or 3 hours of sleep, right? Like, I would often go to bed at 3:30 and wake up at like 7, right? So, and I felt fine. It felt no different than on those weekends where I was able to sleep 8 or 9 hours, until there was like that moment of the day. Every time it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock, where I felt so sleepy and just like I wanted to throw in the towel on the day's events. Just like, all right, I have to shut this down. I'm exhausted. And realizing, okay, when you get more sleep, you don't hit that wall. You know what I mean? So I'm in the process now of kind of trying to work with my night owl nature a little bit, because I do feel like you guys, like what you said really resonated. Like, it does feel like a waste of time. I want to be productive. I think also you guys can relate to this too. Like, being creative, it's not always easy to turn it on and off like a faucet. Like, sometimes it's just not coming in the afternoon when I'm supposed to be working my 9 to 5. Oh, oh, never mind. We'll skip that part. We'll skip that little bit of commentary. Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, you know, sometimes it's 9 o'clock. The household is simmering down. Kids are in bed. And like, that's when I feel like that 9 to 12, that was always a key chunk of time.
That's
like
my time.
PM, right?
Yeah.
It's your
Like,
time, but it's
now.
also, I could watch a movie,
Yeah.
or I could put on Netflix or play a game. And sometimes I do, but it's also prime time. Like, if I'm feeling creative, if those juices are flowing, like, all right, let's do something. You know what I mean? Let me animate something. Let me write something down, jot down a few things, sketch, whatever. But that was always a big thing, because our mom was like that. I think mom will still say that. Like, she says something really interesting that I always wondered about as a kid, but didn't play out the same way for me ultimately, where she was like, ever since I've been a parent, ever since I've had children, which her and my dad were 22 when they were first parents. So she said, ever since that time, I really didn't sleep the same. Like, I think she was you're such a light sleeper. And I always wondered if it was going to be the same for me. It isn't. I like sleep, but I'd rather, it's not that I hate it, but I rather, I'm holding on to that inner night owl, and just, again, trying to compromise with that nature. Because I think you're kind of born with that. I think a big part of it for me was being deprived of staying up. I don't exaggerate. I was 11, 12 years old. My parents were having me go to bed 7:30 at night. So sometimes in the summertime, it just had a big dramatic effect on me, I think.
Which is completely absurd, by the way. Like, there's no reason someone needs to go to bed that early. It's so
I think it was
stupid.
typical, Kyle.
It's so
I think
stupid.
It was like, in the 50s and 60s, you hear people say that a lot. But people when our parents became parents, a lot of people let go of that. But our parents were like holding on to those old ways, because Dana, our sister Dana, our older sister, will tell you the same thing. Certainly, Allie may too, sort of say the same thing. Like, where it was like, no, like, and I think it was that mom was a stay-at-home mom, running around all day, and 7:30 she was just like, that was it. Put a fork in it. Like, I'm done. I need my me time. I need to do other things. I can't be attending the children all day long.
It's kind of how my wife is too.
You know what I mean?
Like, I'm done with the kids now.
Which is dude, there's no harder job. Believe me, the few, like, if Helene goes away for a weekend or goes on a trip with her friends for 3 or 4 days, which is rare, you get a taste of that as a parent. It's like, yeah, this is the friggin' hardest job. God, forget about it. And sleep. I'm always, first of all, I'm always afraid to talk about this too much, because I'm one of those dudes that, like, I'm sleeping before my head hits the pillow. Like, but I know a big part of that is that whether it's 1 o'clock in the morning now, which is much more reasonable, or the way it used to be earlier in my 40s and my 30s, where I was going to bed at 3:30, 4 o'clock, like, that was one comforting thing. Like, when I was ready for bed, I was full on ready. There was not going to be a challenge of falling asleep or any type of tossing and turning or insomnia. But it was getting to the point where I think it was affecting my health for sure. And I would have other animator friends that would be like, dude, I don't even understand how you do it. Like, these were guys that stayed up to 1 a.m. every day. And I was like, dude, 1 o'clock, like, that's child's play. I went to bed at 3:30 every day for the past 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I was waking up at 6:30, commuting to New York. So I was operating on like 3 hours of sleep for so long. But I do say, and again, not to take this down a dark path, but I do think it affected my health eventually. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing, besides the diet, the junk food diet, and always being on the run and eating takeout and stuff. I think it was the lack of sleep that I tell Kyle this, like, we have that 10-year buffer. And I'm like, dude, if you start doing such and such at 40, or you start doing this at 45, that's when I wish I started implementing certain changes. So that's been a big thing with me too, where I wonder how, if I just started a little earlier, because I and a big part of it is, hey, I don't know how you feel, Ben, or you, Micah, but like, I felt like I was 19 until probably my early 40s, where I still felt like I could kind of treat my body that way, and not eat the proper foods, and not do the proper exercise, and not sleep.
I keep hearing more and more about this getting to 40 thing, and now that I'm 35, it's becoming more of a reality. And I'm like, I don't think I like that. I don't think I like that. Like that. Like, I'm gonna have to sleep and eat better. I don't.
It's not fun.
That. Yeah,
it's not fun. It's not fun. But you're. I mean, Micah, you're certainly far ways out. Kyle, you're turning into an old man. But Ben, you got time.
I got 5 years, right? I think
my hair's getting gray.
There's somehow this like magical. There's somehow like this magical number. Like before I turned 30, I remember people being like, "Oh, this gets harder once you hit 30," and I was like, "Whatever." And then I hit 30, and I was like, "Oh God, my knee! Like, what happened?" And now I'm just worried what's going to happen in 5 more years. Like, might as well end it, honestly.
It's all personal, though. Like, if you could operate, like, I was never, my lack of artistic skill or talent or whatever, like, or being frustrated with where I was at artistically or creatively, I never put that down to, oh, I should have slept more. And I don't think it was because of that. Right. I think it was because I was just grappling with my own levels of whatever it was, perfectionism or wanting to be a certain place where I wasn't, or comparing myself to someone who was just better than me. But if you're feeling that way, then you might want to be a little more introspective, where it's like, all right, I think I could be better, or I could do better, or I could take better care of the kids, or not be grouchy with, my wife or whatever. But I think you kind of gotta do you. Like, you can't that's the thing. People are like, you're staying up too late, or you're not taking care of yourself. But if your nature is just to be a night owl, you know what I mean? You're kind of fighting an uphill battle in spite of yourself, because how do you really change that? That's just how you are. Like, Micah loves breakfast. You're going to change. How can you change it? You know what I mean? You can't change these things.
For years, I had to, for different jobs when I was in like high school and college, I had to get up super early. I'm talking like, 4. Like, sometimes I would get up earlier than I go to bed now. And people were always like, oh, you'll get used to it, the longer you do it. And I worked at the country club for like years, and had to get up super early and never got used to. I was always miserable. And I'm like, you people are crazy. I don't get used to this. It's just still miserable. I think it's just the way our bodies are made.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think it does have a lot to do. Well, for me, I could definitely kind of tie it right back to how I grew up, but yeah, a lot of it's just woven into you. It's just part of your fabric. It's how you're made up. Like, how do you change? I don't know anybody who, for instance, isn't a morning person, and I know all kinds, but those people that just don't like mornings, I never knew them to change.
Right.
They may go through the motions because they have to, professionally or for their family, whatever, but they're not enjoying it.
You see these, one went viral some months ago, like people put their calendars up. They're like Google calendars, and this is when I start my day, and this is how I manage my day, and this is what I do.
Okay.
And I'm like, get fucked. I don't have any interest in living my life like that. I don't feel like I am on the clock trying to maximize my time at all. In the general macro scheme of things, I just have no interest in that. I'm here and I'm just doing whatever, and that's just the way it goes. I don't think any of it has any particular meaning. But unlike you guys, I love sleep. And that's why I was surprised when Ben was like, Micah is the biggest fan of sleep. I was like, no,
I thought she was.
The guy who sleeps like 14 hours a day is probably the biggest fan. A lot of this stems from being depressed, of course, and sometimes really depressed. And during the period that I was most depressed, from probably 2016, like my late Kind of Funny years, through my Santa Monica years to when I was in Virginia, 2020 or whatever, I both slept like shit and slept a lot. So like, actually I started going to a psychiatrist in 2018 because I couldn't stay asleep. I would sleep like a really solid 4 hours, and then I would get up, and then later I would sleep like another really solid 4 hours, and so on and so forth. And a pretty old school way of sleeping, actually, but I got that back on track. And the reality is that if I thought it's not even socially acceptable, because I don't care what's socially acceptable. If I thought it was better, if I thought I can get away with it physically, mentally, professionally, I would sleep more than I sleep now. I would be in bed way more. I love being in bed, and I'm probably in bed. The reality is that because we stay in bed for sometimes several hours watching TV before we go to bed, and sometimes stay in bed for 1 or 2 hours after we wake up, just talking and being on our phones and whatever.
Sure.
That I'm in bed half my life. And I have no qualms with that. I think it's totally fine. I love sleeping. I love finding good rest. I don't ever really feel better, and I'm always tired, and I'm tired because I oversleep. There's just no doubt I sleep too much, and I wake up in weird states. And I also have really anxious dreams, so I just don't know that the quality of my sleep is good. But I love going to sleep. I love, like, I'm going into bed. I read before I go to bed, usually like random websites, a lot of Wikipedia and just random things, and just fall down rabbit holes and just zonk out. And I don't know. I dig it. And what I love about sleep, I think, from a more meta level, is just how mysterious it is. That everything basically sleeps, even at like a microorganism level. And scientists don't really truly understand the mechanics of sleep at all. Still, they understand some things of it. They a lot of it is just brain wave comparison to watching people sleep and doing, like Micah said earlier, sleep studies and waking people up and asking them things. And that's how we observe. We don't observe the brain and sleep the way we observe like the heart pumping blood. And that's what I think is so interesting. It's this thing that evolution has shed almost everything at some point or another of all of these different species, but remaining true is this need to sleep. And it's a really dangerous thing to sleep in the wild. So it's vital. It's obviously like this vital function. That's why I said we were watching a show in Vietnam, and it was specifically this guy going to try to find this Vietnamese man who apparently has not slept in 50 years. This is like this claim. And yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, that's just not possible. Like, that's bullshit. That's just not possible. It's not possible. Like, you'll die in a few weeks. And that's what I kept saying to Mike. I'm like, why don't they just ask him, like, can we just stay with you for one day and just observe even for one day? Like, one full day. I want to watch you not sleep for one full day. And then if you make it to that point, then we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll just ask for another day and see if you can keep going. Because I'm calling bullshit on the you not sleeping situation.
It's pretty much mom's claim. She's like, I haven't slept since I've had kids. Now she's not talking about sleeping for an hour or two at a clip and then waking up for an hour. You know what I mean? That might be, certainly more realistic. Do you guys need? I just think of Helene, right? She's like, I don't know. She's like a CIA black ops operative. Like, you cannot make a noise when she's sleeping. Like, I mean, you could be a ninja. I could be as stealthy. I swear to God, no one else would hear me. She's going to wake up. She's the lightest. She loves sleep. She's one of those people that does really legitimately love sleep, but she works hard, and that's always been her thing. She loves bed. She loves, the kind of the snuggly, cozy nature, getting under the blankets and stuff. Like Kyle, it's cut from the same cloth, right?
I used to walk around with my comforter.
Yes, you did. But like the smallest noise will wake her up. And, I'm kind of giving her a hard time right now, but just the nature of our dynamic, like, she's up at 5:30, she's blow drying her hair at 6. I don't wake up till 8. How come I could sleep through all of that? And she hears my footfalls on the carpet. It's like, what is can you be quiet? Like, she asked me to, like, when you get in bed, can you just like do it a certain way? Cause like, it's like the ruffling of the covers. It's like, are you guys like that? Like, I feel like, I don't know. I never really, I mean, I went to school in a big city, but besides that, I grew up in the suburbs, pretty rural, pretty quiet, but I could sleep with a,
as long as it's not automated noise, I don't care. If it's random noise, I don't mind at all. My neighborhood was all being built around me when I first moved in here, and it was loud as fuck, but it didn't really bother me. But I remember living in San Francisco, and there was this beeping noise. I must have told this story in the past. Like, there was a beeping noise I was obsessed with in Golden Gate Park near my house, to the point where in the middle of the night I went and tried to find it.
No way.
Yeah, because it was like driving me nuts. I straight up did it, like in the middle of the morning, just like in the middle of the night, just went out into the Golden Gate Park, not probably the safest thing to do, and just trying to find this noise. And I'm like, I'm going to fucking destroy this thing. But eventually even that just faded into the distance. I have no idea what it was like this. It almost sounded like it was like coming from, first we thought it was like an ocean, that we lived on the ocean. Like I said, 25 blocks or so in San Francisco, probably a couple miles, maybe not even mile and change. And we were like, maybe it's like some boats and stuff like that, but it wasn't. And it bothered me, not because the noise was happening, but because I would wait for it to keep happening. It's like a ticking clock. I can't have that. But what I do like is white noise. I have a fan blasting in my face when I'm sleeping. I also like being really cold when I sleep. I like to drop the air conditioner and then bundle up. I sleep with no pants on, of course, but I sleep with and no underwear on. But I sleep with my t-shirt on.
That's right. Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, I sleep just butt naked, but with a t-shirt on.
It's out of control.
And I really enjoy it. So yeah, from a micro level, my own life, yeah, I really dig sleeping. I would sleep more if I could. I would embrace siestas more if I thought that it was good for me, but it's not. A siesta, like a nap, feels good, but knocks me out. I took a nap the other day. Once in a while, Michael will be. I have like a easy lazy boy, and she has the couch to herself, and sometimes I lay with her. And a couple of times I just fall asleep very easily, and then I wake up and I'm like, well, I'm not going to work out. I'm not going to do any of these other things. I'm just totally fucking dead to the world. Yes. So I really tried not to do that, because during my most depressive time, I tried to sleep and try to find refuge in that sleep as much as humanly possible. And I think that that's natural. But the reality is that I've always really been a proponent of sleep. I've always loved it. I like sleeping in. I remember when I would start sleeping in middle school and high school until 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 in the afternoon. Where dad's like, are you seriously just getting up right now? I'd like roll down, have, be in underwear and a t-shirt and have my comforter at like 2 p.m. to like go lay on the couch. And
see, that never felt like I would enjoy that sometimes, I admit, but I would feel like I would feel like that was a waste of time. It would give me a jet lag sensation, where it's like, wow, I just missed. Like, not only did I sleep till 10, which is probably kind of milking it, but like I just missed 4 or 5 hours of like when everybody else around me.
Yeah, but it's like, what am I really missing? It's like,
see, if you don't have that, then you're free and clear. It's not on your conscience.
Right. That's the whole thing. Is like, I'm still doing, I'm a night owl too, notoriously. I mean, I don't go to bed before 2 or 3 in the morning almost ever. And so it's not like I'm in bed a disproportionate amount, but I am awake doing work. I have this low level of just doing work all day. But then I was like, I'm going to go walk the dog, and then I'm going to come home, and then I'm going to read, Twitter, or like smoke a joint, and then I'm going to do this work, and then I'm going to go do this thing, and I'm going to like change the air filters, and then I'm going to send these emails, and then so it's like always going like that. And that's just kind of how I function throughout the day. And I think a lot of that is just my ADD, like my inability to focus on anything. But the reality is that I think sleep is great. I think it feels good. It's interesting from a higher level, I guess. And I don't know. I'm always confounded by people that don't. I mean, to each his own, but that don't like or need sleep or function. And I would argue that no one that sleeps as little as, say, Ben sleeps is truly functioning at their very best. Like it can't. I don't think it's possible.
I've never claimed to be functioning.
No. I'm saying, like, imagine the level you could work at if you like went and. Well, I guess they would call it sleep hygiene. Like, it's things I don't have either, right? Where it's like, I'm going to go to bed at this time, and get up at this time. I don't live like this at all. But when you're operating at such a higher level, but you're only sleeping 4 or 5 hours, I find that somewhat impressive. But I also think it's like, man, imagine what you can do with more sleep, because it's clearly like a time to process and understand, and it's like vital.
Yeah, but if I were sleeping more, I couldn't be working. Catch 22, Yeah,
but that's true.
That is true. I know 2 people that fit that description, Kyle. Our dad, who is I don't know if he's always been this way. Certainly when he was younger and working 3 and 4 jobs, he wasn't. But I think he's very into his health and taking care of himself. And he's very strict about his sleep patterns. And Helene. And there are 2 people that I could say really are probably operating in prime condition. Like, they're operating at their best, right? Like, really taking care of your car. Like, the oil's changed. They got all the routine maintenance every day, like, type of thing. I do worry. I do think about that. Like, I don't think I was operating at my best for the better part of 2 decades, probably, especially when I think about my career. But again, how does a tiger change their stripes? You know what I mean? Like, and I do think maybe artistically I could have been a little better, but creatively, I think it always worked for me, right? Because that's just, you got to kind of work with the ideas when they come and, catch that spark of inspiration. You can't turn it on and off like a light switch. I don't know. I always wonder if I had a more normal, quote unquote, job. If it would have been, if I was a doctor, for instance. That's kind of a bad example because they sometimes have to work shitty hours, or, an accountant or a lawyer or something, where it was like more corporate, more process, and I could be on a 9 to 5 and be much more regular. It doesn't rely on something that's, elusive, like creativity. But yeah, I do think about that. I'm like envious of all 3 of you guys, because you're still at that point. I think, at least I was at your ages, where it's like, Kyle, you talk about naps. Like, I was just talking to Lilia about this before we started the show. She's 16, and she was like, she's tired. She works hard between school and dance and everything like that. She has a busy schedule, but she was saying, like, I fall asleep sometimes in the afternoon, but I get that shitty feeling when I wake up. I'm jet lagged. I'm sort of robbed of energy. And I do remember that. Like, naps were like, that was just out for me. I could not sort of entertain the idea of a nap. But in the last couple of years, take comfort in the fact that when you reach your mid to late 40s, it's going to be different. Like, the naps actually refresh me now. And older people used to tell me that, like, oh no, half-hour nap, dude, just like don't push it over like 45 minutes to an hour. You'll feel reinvigorated and re-energized, and you do. So it might just be, You know what I mean? You're sort of catching up to your body, and you're going through those changes when you're older. It's so weird because in so many ways, I think mentally and emotionally, I feel so much younger. But now my body is just not only the gray hairs and the other things that come along with it physically, but I'm starting to feel older physically for the first time, as I approach my 50s. And, it's a bummer in some way, but I think it's just normal. It was going to happen at some point, right? Our dad's in his 70s. I feel like he's still waiting, but for me, I'm turning into an old man now. It's official.
Yeah, I get that. I'm eagerly anticipating what 40 will actually feel like. But in the meantime, yeah, these were interesting topics. I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me today. Let's go around the horn and say goodbye to everyone. Ben, closing comments?
I also do not understand naps. I mean, this is my closing comment. I think naps are for people who are weak. If you're going to take a nap, just commit and go to sleep. It seems pointless, and everybody should eat more ham, unless it's like unless it's like a Jewish thing, then don't eat more ham if that's going to bother you. But everybody else should eat more ham.
Micah, closing comments.
I forgot to mention one of my biggest fears is mascots. And recently Colin had asked me if I wanted to go to Disney, and I immediately, without even missing a beat, I was like, no.
Really?
And it's because I'm terrified of mascots. And when I was a kid, SpongeBob came to town. He was at the AT&T, and I looked forward to it all week. I said, Mom, will you take me to it? Because it was in the paper. She said, yes. And we drove up to the AT&T, and I saw him standing in the parking lot, and I was like, get out of here. I was like, get us out of here. I'm not getting out of the car. And she's like, you don't want to see him? I was like, we saw him, and we left. So I forgot that. That's one of my really tangible,
visceral one.
Real fears. Yeah, I'm very afraid of mascots. I completely forgot about that.
Interesting. Yeah. Dagan, closing comments.
Micah, was that because it was low rent, terry cloth, Times Square SpongeBob? Or was it because a proper SpongeBob costume, pretty adorable, right? He's pretty cute.
Oh, so it doesn't matter because it was a good SpongeBob. It was a decent SpongeBob, but the same thing happened with Barney. He was at the supermarket, and that was terrifying. And also, I went to a UMass basketball game, and the Minuteman was there, and he wanted a high five, and I didn't want to do it, but you're going to look like an asshole. He's walking up to you for that high five, and I swear to God, the moment my hand touched that suit, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I just was like, I can't do this. And there's also a picture of me at PAX one year with Mario and Luigi, and I was so sweaty. Because as the closer we got to them in line, I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But I hated it. I hated every second of it.
Interesting. Well,
let me poll you guys as we go out.
Yeah.
Because I never thought of this. And it's kind of disturbing me a little bit. We're talking about ham on Easter. Why don't people eat rabbit on Easter? How would you guys feel about rabbit? Was always, I don't know. I think it really comes down to Watership Down for me. Let's be honest. I always from that moment on, I sort of adopted the rabbit as my soul animal, but because I really related to them in the book and the movie. But
it's a weird animal to eat, I think.
I came down I don't need to eat because I really admire vegetarianism a lot, but I do not have the discipline. I love meat way too much.
Why do you admire it?
Because I think, especially for philosophical reasons, if you adopt. I'm not even saying veganism because that's a whole nother thing that I don't know if I know enough about, but just straight up old school vegetarianism. I really admire that because, at least for me, because I would be robbing myself of something that I really enjoy for philosophical reasons, right? For righteous reasons. I could never do it. I just love chicken and steak, for instance, way too much. But I always came down all right, I assuage my guilt by saying, okay, I eat steak, chicken's okay, pork products acceptable, but I'm not going to cross over into eating ostrich or rabbit. I used to say duck, but I started eating duck. It's freaking delicious. Sorry, ducks. So that's how I make myself feel better. I limit the meats.
How are you? Would you eat Santa Claus on Christmas? You can't eat the Easter bunny.
Yeah, but also if you eat lamb on Easter and Christ being the Lamb of God, that weirds me out when they're like, here's a lamb. And I'm like, wasn't he the lamb?
You're eating him though every time you go
we're eating him?
We're eating him when we do the host.
delicious.
It's
Not
it's
Jesus.
too much
Lamb.
for me.
Lamb is delicious.
It's too much.
Body of Christ. No, lamb. Oh, I'll bite a lamb. I feel like I would bite a lamb if it was just like grazing in the pasture. They're so I'll just take a chunk out of them. It's delicious. They're adorable, but they're a tough one because they really are cute. But lamb chops all day, my friend.
Mm.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your take on the rabbits, the rabbit situation.
Yeah.
No,
Never ate rabbit.
No, I think it's weird to eat rabbits in this era. Personally, they're too cuddly and cute. Leave them alone. We don't need to eat them. That's like a more Desperation Last of Us style situation.
I'll eat rabbit eggs though.
I don't think you understand how rabbits work. All right.
For a second there, I was like, oh, I've never had rabbit eggs.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here. It's time to go. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of all things Last Stand. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for more, including early ad-free access to this show and the others as well. Couldn't do it without you. Leave nice reviews on podcast services, thumb us up on YouTube, etc., and so on. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye. Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.